Chapter 487. In the inner courtyard of the Zhao family, Ji Ming blocked the way. His white fan was filled with killing intent. Umph. The half-exalted snorted and made a grabbing motion with his right hand. A white sword light appeared, and in the next moment, the sword's edge was filled with killing intent. Liusu, back off a bit? Ningchen ordered and stepped forward. He used his fan to block the sword's edge. With a clang, the force was negated. The cloud-moving technique was 30% block and 70% negation. It was continuous and had no flaws. You're not from the Zhao family. He had never seen such a style before. Frowning slightly, the half-revered martial artist changed his stance. I never said I was from the Zhao family. Ningchen waved his fan again. The fan was like a blade that rode the wind. He no longer faced the half-exalted swordsman head-on. His blade was light and quick like a willow leaf in the wind. Getting involved in this mess won't do you any good. The half-exalted swordsman's expression turned cold. He condensed vast origin energy into his sword and used his absolute cultivation to suppress the white fan. Other than that, girl, I won't interfere with anyone else. How about it? Is my sincerity enough? Ning Chen's figure was like an illusion. His figure flickered and became even more difficult to track. Then there's nothing to talk about. The half-exalted swordsman pointed his finger at the sword. His powerful true origin energy circulated and strengthened the sword's edge. The sword and fan clashed again. Su Yi was forced back half a step. Showing off in front of an expert. Ning Chen's eyes flashed coldly. His figure turned and he retreated from the battle. He closed his white fan and sword intent rose around him. The fan turned into a sword, and with a step, the sword's edge split the sky. The two weapons clashed. With a bang, the shockwaves spread in all directions. The tilted battle was once again balanced. The white fan in the wind moved like a blade. The blade turned into a sword. Even the half-exalted expert couldn't surpass it. Who are you? The half-exalted swordsman's expression turned gloomy. Who was this person to have such ability at such a young age? It was too unimaginable. Passerby. Ningchen stopped and turned his fan. Red light rose and collided with the sword's edge. The sword and fan collided, and the two retreated at the same time. They were evenly matched, and it was difficult to determine the victor. At this moment, the void swirled, and a black-clothed figure appeared. His Majesty was no weaker than the two present. He passed by and directly flew to Zhao Liusu, who was outside the battle. The black-clothed expert suddenly appeared without any warning. Ningchen was shocked. He used his folding fan to block the blade. While the shockwave shook him, he did not stop and used the momentum to retreat. In an instant he moved extremely fast. The two of them only saw a red light flash by, and Ningchen was already in front of Zhao Liusu. The white fan transformed into a sword, and a single sword transformed into 100,000 swords. A world-shocking sword intent surged out mightily, and it slashed through the space 300 m in front of him. The black-clothed half-revered martial artist was shocked. His palm force collided with the sword intent. He was unable to react in time and was forced to retreat several steps. He was actually at a disadvantage. However, as one of them retreated, the other's sword had already arrived. Ningchen didn't have enough time to catch his breath. He grabbed Ling's sword with his left hand. Blood flowed down the sword and dyed the ground in front of him red. Two half-revered martial artists coming together to capture a little girl. I really have a whole new level of respect for your shamelessness. Ningchen waved his fan and pushed away the half-revered martial artist in front of him. The situation was already very clear. These people had attacked the Zhao family at night and charged into the Divine Bao Tower. All of these were just a distraction. Their true goal was to capture Liusu. For the sake of a little girl, they actually made such a big fuss. The secret behind this was definitely not ordinary. Zhao Tenkong is almost here. We don't have much time. Kill him and take Zhao Liusu away, reminded the black-clothed half-revered martial artist. Understood. The other half-revered martial artist nodded. After a short exchange, the two half-revered martial artists moved at the same time. Their sword and palm moved together as they rushed forward. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more dangerous, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He stepped on flowing light and his shadow body moved 1,000 times. He used a strange movement technique to dodge the killing lights. The palm and the fan collided. The black-clothed half-revered martial artist flipped his palm and attacked again. He was shocked to see that Ning Chen's white clothes had already disappeared. 1 against 2, Ning Chen used his water-light shadow body. Coupled with his extreme speed, he used 70% of his strength and 30% of his strength. He wanted to drag out the battle and not give the two half-revered martial artists a chance. How troublesome! The black-clothed half-martial venerable's expression sank. He flipped his palm and shook off the battle. Shortly after, he began to absorb qi and raise his yuan. Amidst the rumbling, black lightning appeared in the surrounding heaven and earth. Seeing this, the other half-revered martial artist waved his sword to cut off the path of retreat of the youth in front of him. Sensing danger, Ning Chen gathered his phoenix qi on his folding fan. It rapidly spun into the air and collided with the black lightning descending from the sky. In that instant, the folding fan was burned to ashes. The lightning was blocked, but Ning Chen didn't retreat. Instead, he moved forward and formed a sword with his finger. The black-clothed half-revered martial artist flipped his palm to block the sword. With a loud bang, the sword intent passed through his palm and continued to pierce his chest. The black-clothed half-revered martial artist groaned. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. He had also suffered a serious injury. "Mr. Bai, thank you for your help. Leave the rest to me." At that moment, an extremely powerful figure walked out of the void. It was the Zhao family's master. He soared into the sky and took over the battle. Seeing Zhao Tinkong appear, Ning Chen waved his hand and closed his folding fan. He turned around and walked towards the little girl. He didn't care about the battle at all. "You're injured." Not far away, Zhao Liusu, who had been paying attention to the battle, took 2 steps forward and grabbed Ning Chen's bloody left hand. Her eyes were filled with worry. "It's nothing," Ning Chen said with a smile on his face. In the battle, the two half-revered martial artists' expressions sank when they saw Zhao Tinkong appear. "Retreat." The black-clothed half-revered martial artist knew that he couldn't succeed in his mission anymore. His order was transmitted to every battle in the Zhao family. "Do you think you can leave?" Zhao Tinkong's palm contained the wind and clouds. An unparalleled majestic aura turned into a torrential flood that slammed towards the two half-revered martial artists. For the first time, the person who was closest to becoming a sovereign in the world revealed his powerful ability. A green flood covered a radius of 300 meters. The two half-revered martial artists were shocked. They raised their true yuan to the limit and joined hands to block the incoming flood. With an earth-shattering explosion, the two half-revered martial artists' bodies were dyed red. They were forced back dozens of steps. Their swords were broken and their bones were shattered. They were defeated in one move. Outside the battle, Ning Chen's expression was also grave. For the first time, he felt a trace of fear for the Zhao family's master, who didn't seem to be special. The battle was unfavorable for the two half-revered martial artists. At that moment, 2 terrifying arrows shot towards the two half-revered martial artists. Seeing this, the two half-revered martial artists flipped their palms to block the arrows. With a loud bang, the two half-revered martial artists were sent flying. Their mouths were dyed red once more. "Go!" The two half-revered martial artists quickly retreated. "Do you think it's that easy?" A cold voice rang out and 2 more arrows shot out. They pierced through the void and chased after the two half-revered martial artists. The arrows pierced through the two half-revered martial artists, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The two half-revered martial artists didn't care about their injuries and quickly left. It was already too late to chase after the two half-revered martial artists. A beautiful figure walked out of the battle. It was the Zhao family's Yulan. Holding the Inyue heavenly bow, she looked into the distance with a bone-chilling expression. "Sorry for letting them escape," said Zhao Yulan indifferently. "It's not your fault. Keeping 2 half-revered martial artists here isn't easy. Let's first count the casualties." Zhao Tinkong instructed and did not say anything else. He nodded towards Ning Chen, who was a short distance away, before turning around and leaving. "White Jade Jing." I'll remember your name. Zhao Yulong glanced at the plain-clothed youth in front of her and indifferently said those words before also leaving. The human heart is truly unfathomable. Looking at the two of them leaving, Ning Chen sighed emotionally. What is it? Zhao Liusu's face was filled with confusion. Nothing. Ning Chen shook his head. He smiled and said, It's already late. Go back and rest. Wait a moment. Zhao Liusu glanced at her mother and then turned and ran towards a nearby room. Mr. Bai, I have to thank you again for saving my daughter's life. The woman walked up and bowed, softly thanking him. You're too polite. Liusu and I are friends, so it's something I should do, replied Ningchen. It's my daughter's fortune to have a friend like Mr. Bai. May I ask where Mr. Bai's master is? Once Liusu's father returns, I'll definitely personally go and thank you, said the woman. Madam is too polite. My master isn't from any large sect, and it's located in the distant Nanling. I really can't compare to an influential family like the Zhao family. Even if I told you, you definitely wouldn't have heard of it, so I won't embarrass myself. Ningchen smiled. Compared to the immature Liusu, her mother really wasn't a simple person. Although she looked gentle and virtuous, she was actually very meticulous. Every step she took was probing, but at the same time, it wasn't annoying. A woman from an influential family, especially one with a status like Liusu's mother's, was much more scheming than an ordinary woman. That girl Liusu still had a long way to go. Everyone had to grow up. No matter what happened between him and the Zhao family in the future, he hoped that she would be safe and happy in the future. Brother Bai. Not far away, the little girl ran over with the medicine box in hand. After opening the medicine box, she took out a bottle of medicine and carefully applied it to the injured hand of the former. Soon after, she carefully wrapped it with a white cloth and tied a beautiful bow on the back of the hand. Only then did she raise her small head and smile as if she was asking for praise. Ningchen stretched out his hand that was wrapped like a dumpling and rubbed the little girl's hair. He smiled and said, Okay, quickly go and rest. I'm going back too. After saying that, Ningchen said goodbye to the woman and didn't stay any longer. He turned around and left. In front of the inner courtyard, Zhao Liusu looked at the former's back as he left. For some reason, there was a faint trace of reluctance in her heart. The woman looked at her daughter and didn't say anything. When a girl was at the age of yearning for love, she was always ignorant and beautiful. This kind of time would be the most precious memory of her life. She didn't need to destroy it. Her daughter would grow up and become more sensible. That Mr. Bai did have a charm that ordinary people didn't have. He was powerful, mysterious, and sincere. However, he was also very dangerous. A person with a story was not scary. What was scary was a person who could hide all his stories in the deepest part of his heart. She couldn't see any emotional fluctuations in Mr. Bai's eyes. He was clearly smiling, but he still gave her an indescribable calmness. It was as if he had forgotten what a happy smile was. In the southwest of Zhongzhou, in the Luoshui River, the emperor with his white hair fluttering in the wind was unconscious. The demonic mark between his eyebrows was as red as blood and was extremely dazzling. The emperor who saved the world couldn't save himself in the end. He became a demon, and there was no turning back. Chapter 488. In front of the great Sun Divine Bao Pagoda in the Zhao clan's North Imperial City, Zhao Dingkong kept his promise and waited for Ningchen to come and witness the might of the heavenly Bao. Every 10 steps, there would be layers of protection. The most mysterious forbidden area of the Zhao family was finally revealed today. The majestic heavenly Bao Tower was built with strange black stones. It emitted a strange light under the setting sun, giving people an indescribable feeling of oppression. After the night attack last night, the heavenly Bao Tower's security was even tighter. Xiantian experts were guarding every direction, leaving no openings. When the two of them arrived, the tower's door opened. Zhao Dingkong walked in front, and Ningchen followed behind. Inside the heavenly Bao Tower, dense mist floated up and down, as if they were in a strange illusion. After passing through countless formations, a huge black stone platform appeared in front of them. On the stone platform, a divine Bao stood. It was completely white, and there were insects, fish, birds, and beasts carved on the bow. It was the head of the Zhao family's 3 heavenly bows, the Great Sun Divine Bow. A divine object? Ningchen looked at it for a long time and sighed. If Mr. Bai wants to take a closer look, you can come closer, Zhao Tenkong said sincerely. No need, this is enough. Ningchen shook his head lightly and knew when to advance and retreat. Zhao Tenkong nodded slightly when he heard Su Mo's words. Su Mo was indeed different from ordinary people. What he said just now was more of a test. In this world, there were countless experts who coveted the Great Sun's sacred bow. The strength this kid showed last night was really shocking. Even he didn't have full confidence in keeping him here. If he really had ulterior motives, it would be a big problem for the Zhao family. Sect Master, let's go. Ningchen didn't want to stay any longer after seeing the Great Sun Divine Bow. Zhao Tenkong nodded and waved his hand. The mist around the stone platform gathered again, covering the traces of the divine bow. Just as the two of them were about to leave, a white light flashed past, heading straight for the two of them. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and waved his hand to catch the white light. Kid, I heard that when you were protecting Liusu last night, your fan was destroyed. I don't like to owe people favors, so I'll give it to you as compensation. As soon as he finished speaking, the mist covered their eyes, and there was no longer any sound. Ningchen looked at the white fan in his hand. Immediately, he cupped his hands together and said, "Thank you, Elder." At the side, Zhao Tenkong had a strange look in his eyes. Why is this old man so generous this time? This fan was extraordinary. Its name was Clear Sunly Fire, and it was made from the leftover scraps of the Great Sun Divine Bow. Originally, they wanted to make it into a sword, but because there were too few divine materials left, they could only make it into a fan. The two left the Divine Sun Bow Tower and arrived in front of the Inua Tower. Zhao Tenkong stopped and reminded him, Mr. Bai, the Inua Tower is guarded by the Very High Pavilion. The people of the Very High Pavilion have always been xenophobic. Therefore, when we enter the tower, please do not leave my side so as to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Understood. Ningchen nodded. Then, the two of them walked into the tower. Unlike the Great Sun Tower, the inside of the Inua Tower was surprisingly quiet. There was nothing in sight, as if it was an empty tower. Zhao Tenkong took a step forward and flipped his right hand. A purple token appeared in his hand. Suddenly, a bright light rose up, illuminating the entire Yin Moon Tower. The illusion became real. A staircase to heaven appeared and spiraled into the pagoda peak. Let's go. Zhao Tenkong called out and immediately walked up the heaven ascension stairs towards the top of the tower. Ningchen followed one step at a time. After 900 steps, the two of them arrived at the highest level of the Inua Tower. The clouds parted to reveal the moon. At the peak of the tower, a heavenly bow floated up and down. In front of the heavenly bow was a beautiful woman. She had clearly been waiting for a long time. Bai Yujing, seeing as how you blocked 2 assassins for the Zhao family last night, the Very High Pavilion has agreed to let you enter and view the Inua Heavenly Bow. However, don't let me find out that you have any ulterior motives. Otherwise, no one will be able to save your life, said Zhao Yulan coldly. Ningchen smiled and nodded. His attitude was very cooperative. He took 2 steps forward and looked at the heavenly bow floating in the moonlight. His eyes constantly flashed. Last night, he had only caught a glimpse of it and hadn't had the chance to look at it carefully. But now that he looked at it, the Inua Bao's killing intent seemed to be even greater than Luo Xingqian's star mark bow. The Zhao family's 3 heavenly bows were truly extraordinary. Back then, Luo Xingqian had been able to survive the endless pursuit of the Zhao family with his second calamity cultivation base. Not only was his battle prowess extraordinary, but his star mark bow had also played a significant role. Seeing the indescribable light in Ning Chen's eyes, Zhao Yulan's expression became even colder. Are you done looking? If you're done, you can leave. I'm done looking. However, I have a presumptuous request. I hope Miss Xiao can agree to it. Ning Chen recovered. Speak. Zhao Yulan narrowed her eyes. According to the legends of the Central Plains, the Zhao family's 3 heavenly bows possess boundless power. Would it be possible for me to have the honor of experiencing them? Ning Chen's lips curved. Oh. Zhao Yulan was startled at first, but then a smile appeared on her face. It was like an orchid blooming, beautiful yet dangerous. Mr. Bai, this competition is too dangerous. Please reconsider. Zhao Tenkong frowned and stepped forward to advise him. Secmaster, don't worry. I'll be lenient. Ning Chen smiled. Heh, I admire your arrogance. Zhao Yulan waved her hand, and the heavenly bow moved. An azure arrow shot out. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Su Yi. Ning Chen's expression didn't change. He opened his fan and blocked the arrow. Miss Zhao, we don't have much time, so there's no need for greetings. Let's fight for real. As you wish. With that, Zhao Yulan clenched her left hand. In the next moment, a dark moon descended from the sky. Boundless yin qi surged, causing the temperature around them to rapidly drop. In the southwest region of the Central Plains, a cold moon hung in the sky. Spring and autumn flowed, and snowy plum blossoms bloomed. This was a dreamlike secret realm. It was like a beautiful painting. Within the painting, a woman was playing a zither. The Luo River Divine Maiden was a wondrous woman who was no weaker than a chosen. At the half-step exalt realm, she had grasped the power of laws that even chosen would find difficult to comprehend. Just at this moment, the space in the painting shook, and a middle-aged man in a wheelchair appeared. He looked at the woman playing the zither in the distance. He was just about to walk over when a barrier of water blocked him, making it difficult for him to take even half a step forward. Goddess Luo, Big Brother is in trouble. Please, for the sake of our past friendship, save him, pleaded Kong Yuanxi from his wheelchair. I've already repaid the favor. Please return. My friend's mood is very bad right now. If she wants to fuss about what happened that day, I won't help you, said Goddess Luo calmly as she played the zither. Kong Yuanxi's expression immediately became unsightly. Anger flashed in his eyes. Mi Fei, we've known each other for so many years. Are you really going to just watch him die? Just now, she let you leave because of our past friendship. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. As she spoke, the barrier of water shattered and space froze. A beautiful figure surrounded by dazzling moonlight appeared. She looked at the man Kong Yuanxi had brought with him, not hiding the killing intent in her eyes. Who are you? Seeing this woman appear, Kong Yuanxi's expression sank. The person who will kill you. As soon as she spoke, moonlight flashed. In the blink of an eye, the beautiful figure arrived. She turned her palm and condensed essence energy. Kong Yuanxi was startled. He raised his palm to block, but with a bang he was sent flying back several steps. Beneath the cold moonlight, Goddess Luo was filled with killing intent. She moved once more, her palms striking down with astonishing power. Big Ko was startled and angry. He turned his wheelchair, wanting to use so close, yet worlds apart. However, a shocking scene occurred. Within the frozen space, the void shook for a brief moment before quickly calming down. Moonlight arrived. A palm landed on Big Ko's body, bringing with it a waterfall of blood. The wheelchair was sent flying, blood splashing everywhere, dyeing the sky red. You want to use the space laws in front of me? How foolish. Goddess Luo didn't stop. Her figure flashed. Her palm condensed killing intent and fell once more. With a bang, a mistake occurred. Her palm struck his head and blood gushed into the sky. In front of his unwilling eyes, Big Ko died. For the sake of justice, this woman of the Eternal Night sect began another slaughter. With Big Ko dead and Qingbai in critical condition, Goddess Luo's killing intent hadn't yet been restrained. She raised her hand, wanting to send this human supreme to the Yellow Springs. In the distance, Goddess Luo sighed. She waved her hand and put away her zither. Then, her figure flashed and she appeared in front of Goddess Luo. Goddess Luo, Emo Qingbai's cultivation has been crippled and his qi has been destroyed. Even if he wakes up, it's impossible for him to practice martial arts again. For my sake, please spare his life. Goddess Luo pleaded. Goddess Luo narrowed her eyes. A moment later, her killing intent gradually converged. She lightly said, I can spare his life. But whether or not Knowledge Destiny wants to spare his life in the future will depend on his luck. After saying this, Goddess Luo didn't say anything else. She turned and left. 2 steps later, she vanished from sight. 10 miles away, in the gurgling Luoshui River, a white-haired figure in black clothes floated up and down. On the riverside, a beautiful figure appeared. She looked at the unconscious sovereign in the river, and a trace of unconcealable sadness flashed in her eyes. After the battle to send off the deity, there were only a few friends left. They could save the world, but they couldn't save the people they cherished. Why did the heavens always refuse to let them go? Was it because of the slaughter they had committed? If they wanted to punish them, was this enough? Have you considered whether or not to let him wake up? Goddess Luo walked over and asked softly. Those who had fallen into the demonic path could no longer turn back in this life. Even if they woke up, they would only be strangers. It was impossible for them to return to the past. No need. Once he recovers, I will take him away until I find a way to bring him back. Goddess Luo concealed the emotions in her eyes and calmly replied. They would walk their own path. No matter what lay ahead, they would do their best to walk it. When Goddess Luo heard this, she sighed softly in her heart. She hadn't seen it with her own eyes, so she didn't know what kind of despair the divine prefecture of the eastern region had experienced. She didn't know what kind of sacrifices the powerhouses of the divine prefecture had made to send the deity away. However, she knew very well that that catastrophe must have been the darkest time of the world. After I leave, if knowledge destiny comes, please tell him that I'm taking Xia Zi away. Tell him not to worry. If fate wills it, we'll meet again. Goddess Luo looked at the figure in the river and calmly said, Okay. Goddess Luo nodded and softly replied. Chapter 489. On the peak of the Inue Pagoda, 2 strong cultivators began their battle. One was wearing a white fan, while the other was wearing a long dress and a cold bow. The battle was about to begin. The moon of the 9th heaven shone through the small window at the top of the pagoda. The cold moonlight shone on the black bow, reflecting a bone-chilling light. Please. The moment the dark clouds avoided the moon, Su Yi moved. In a flash, she arrived in front of Yulan. Her white fan was like a sword, drawing out a dazzling light. Last night, she had seen the speed and technique of the person in front of her. Zhao Yulan was prepared. Her soft body twisted in a strange arc to avoid the killing light from the white fan. After failing in one move, Ningchen pressed down on the fan in his hand. A fierce attack followed like a shadow. Zhao Yulan flipped her right hand and blocked the fan. Then, she took advantage of the momentum to retreat 10 meters. The Inue bow was drawn, and a black arrow shot out. The arrow was so fast that it was shocking. The white fan in Ning Chen's hand rose up to meet the arrow. With a clang, the arrow scattered, and Su Yi retreated. However, at this moment, true killing intent arrived. 3 beams of black light shot forth, tearing through the void and arriving in front of Su Yi. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He calmed himself down and fanned the wind and clouds. The red flames turned into a raging torrent that blocked the incoming arrow. With a loud rumble, the aftermath surged. Su Yi dissipated, and the flowing light flickered. She once again pressed forward. White sand leads the killing. There was no pity for the fairer sex. Every move was ruthless. Zhao Yulan's eyes grew colder. She dodged and blocked. Her soft body swam in the white fan's killing light like duckweed in the rain, ready to sink at any moment. The 2 showed no mercy. Every move was to kill. It was not like a competition, but more like a battle of life and death. Inue sentiments? The Inue bow left her hand and drew the bow. The crescent moon was complete, and a whistling arrow shot out to end the battle. Yulan took advantage of the momentum and retreated to the side of the Inue bow. She pulled the bowstring with her left hand, and a crackling thunder light descended. Remnant wind, fleeting shadow. Seeing this, Ningchen took a step and leaped forward. His body split into thousands of shadows, which constantly flickered in the air to avoid the arrow light. Soon after, they separated and merged into one, which streaked across the sky at an extremely fast speed. Back then, Mu Qingxue had secretly learned the moves of the Heaven and Earth Scroll out of heartache. Mu Qingxue was well aware of the other party's petty and shameless behavior. However, he didn't point it out and pretended not to see it. There were too many experts in the Zhao family, and Ning Chen was worried that his identity would be exposed. Therefore, he did not use his own martial arts, but chose to use a move or two that he had secretly learned in the past. The separated and condensed shadow cut through the dim void under the moonlight and arrived in front of Yulan. The white fan turned into a sword, threatening her life. Seeing that she was about to be killed, Zhao Yulan couldn't care about anything else. Her left hand drew across the bowstring, and blood dyed the bow red. In an instant, a beautiful blood-red light soared into the sky, and a terrifying aura quickly awakened. The bow disappeared in the blink of an eye and reappeared behind the two of them. The bow was drawn, and the blood-red light illuminated the world. The arrow shot out, destroying everything in its path. The instant the arrow shot out, Zhao Yulan's body moved to avoid the Yellow Springs road that was about to open under the moonlight. The heavenly bow had awakened, and a sense of crisis had descended upon them. Ning Chen immediately withdrew his attack, and without even thinking about it, he hugged the Zhao family's Yulan, refusing to let go. Zhao Yulan's expression became extremely unsightly. However, the Yellow Springs road was about to open, and there was no time for her to withdraw her attack. She could only take this shameless person with her and flee. In the next moment, the blood-red light pierced through the sky, and the Yellow Springs road opened up a path. In an instant, the pagoda's layers of restrictions were destroyed. "How long are you going to hug me for?" Within the pagoda, Zhao Yulan's expression was as cold as ice. Hearing this, Ning Chen immediately let go and retreated 2 steps, pretending as if nothing had happened. A smile appeared on his face. The Zhao family's Yulan truly lives up to her reputation. "I admit defeat. Secmaster, let's go." Knowing that this wasn't a place to stay, Ning Chen called out to Zhao Tinkong. Without waiting for a response, he turned and left. Zhao Tinkong came back to his senses, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He didn't say anything and left with him. Just as the two of them left, a huge explosion rang out from the peak of the pagoda, as if something had been smashed apart. The sound was truly shocking. As a result, the two of them quickened their steps. After leaving the pagoda, Ning Chen said goodbye to Zhao Tinkong, then walked back to his own room. Today's goal had been achieved. Next, it was time to prepare for the next step of the plan. In front of the pagoda, Zhao Tinkong turned to look at the Inue pagoda that had been pierced through by the arrow. A strange light flashed in his eyes. Although this Mr. Bai's method of dealing with that arrow just now was a bit shameless, to be able to react in such a short time was truly extraordinary. During a battle, there wasn't much time to think. Most of the time, one had to rely on their body's instincts. To put it more simply, they relied on experience. It was also because of this that two people in the same realm could have a world of difference in strength. Ever since the return of the Eastern Divine Land, the heavens and earth had been mended. The younger generation of the various sects and clans had endless geniuses. However, there were still not many who could truly challenge the older generation. The reason was because of the gap in battle experience. However, the appearance of this Mr. Bai had changed his view of the younger generation. His moves were simple, fast, and accurate. There weren't any flashy moves. Especially in battle, it was so perfect that it gave people goosebumps. To put it simply, if this person wasn't a peerless genius in battle, then he was a true monster who had walked step by step through life and death battles. To be honest, if it was the former, then it wouldn't be so bad. In the endless years of the Zhao clan, they had produced all kinds of geniuses. Even if they were monstrous geniuses, they wouldn't be treated like a treasure like the other clans. The Zhao clan believed in strength. Geniuses needed time and training to grow. They had seen too many monstrous geniuses fall in the process of growing up. Compared to geniuses, the truly terrifying ones were the monsters who had walked step by step. After experiencing too many life and death battles, these people's ability to protect themselves was extremely terrifying. The more dangerous the situation, the more amazing the strength they showed. The Zhao clan originally had such a person. Unfortunately, thinking of this, Zhao Tinkong sighed deeply. In the past 100 years, the biggest mistake the Zhao clan had made was to force away a genius who was supposed to be the future of the Zhao clan. In the east wing, Ning Chen had just opened the door to his room when he saw Zhao Liusu sitting at the table, holding her small face with her hands in a daze. When the door opened, the little girl immediately got up and trotted happily. "You're back. How was it? Did you see me? Hey, why are your clothes torn? Did you fight with someone?" The little girl's endless questions made Ning Chen's head ache. He stepped around her and walked towards the tea table. This girl's mother didn't care about her and came here every day. She really didn't trust his character. Why didn't you go back to rest? Why did you come here again? Ning Chen sat down at the table and poured himself a cup of tea. He really wasn't used to having to do everything himself when Ruo Shi wasn't around. "You still haven't answered me. Didn't you go see Heavenly Bao? Why did you fight again?" Zhao Liusu asked with dissatisfaction. "It's a long story. I went to the Yin Moon Tower and saw Zhao Yulan. I didn't like her, so I fought with her." Ning Chen took a sip of tea and replied, "Oh, it's not long. Did you win or lose?" Zhao Liusu curiously asked. "I lost." Ning Chen casually replied. How did I lose? Did you go easy on me?" What's that smell?" Speaking up to hear, Zhao Liusu suddenly felt something was wrong. Taking a step forward, she lowered her head and sniffed the former's body. "Are you a dog? What are you sniffing?" Ning Chen reached out and pushed the pretty little face in front of him away. She was too close and he felt dizzy. "Your clothes have Elder Yolan's scent. Tell me honestly, what did you do?" Zhao Liusu raised her hand and pointed in front of him. Ning Chen raised his arm in surprise and sniffed it. It really did have the scent of orchids. It was very light. If one didn't smell it carefully, they wouldn't have noticed it. How did this girl's nose grow? It was even more sensitive than a dog's. "It's a long story. I'll tell you later." Ning Chen poured himself another cup of tea and casually replied, "I have plenty of time. It doesn't matter how long it takes." Zhao Liusu made up her mind not to let a certain someone get away with it. She moved a chair and sat in front of the former. "Okay, you can speak now. I was competing with your elder Yulan. Originally, our strength was about the same. Neither of us could do anything to the other. Who knew that she would suddenly use a big move? When I saw that I was going to be unlucky, I directly hugged her. Think about it, we were so close. She couldn't have shot herself through the heart, right?" Speaking up to hear, Ning Chen felt something was wrong. Why should he explain? He didn't owe this girl anything. "That's all?" Zhao Liusu doubtfully asked. "That's all." Ning Chen nodded. The Zhao family's sect master was still nearby. No matter how much of a beast he was, it was impossible for him to be so bold as to do something that would incur the wrath of men and gods in someone else's territory. "Right, give me your hand." Suddenly, Ning Chen seemed to have thought of something and looked at the little girl in front of him. "What for?" Zhao Liusu suspiciously asked. "Checking your body." Ning Chen casually replied. "Pervert." Zhao Liusu's face reddened and she immediately got up and took 2 steps back. Her expression was full of vigilance. Ning Chen was startled, but he immediately reacted and said disdainfully, "What is that little head of yours thinking every day? Even if you want to be a pervert, you should choose that elder Yulan. Her temperament is better than yours, and she's also prettier than you. Quickly come over. I suspect that those assassins yesterday wanted to capture you to find something. I'm still young. When I grow up, I'll definitely be prettier than her." Zhao Liusu muttered in dissatisfaction. Then she slowly walked forward and stretched out her fair and slender little hand. Ning Chen reached out and grabbed the little girl's arm. He poured his true essence into it and carefully searched along her meridians. He was sure that Zhao Liusu definitely had some sort of secret, and it was very likely that this secret was only known by Zhao Tenkong and a very small number of people in the highest pavilion. After seeing the coldness and ruthlessness of aristocratic families, he was unable to give any trust to these people. Last night's matter had too many suspicious points. He was worried that the Zhao family was planning something, and this girl was just one of their chess pieces. Zhao Liusu looked at the serious appearance of the person in front of her, and a touch of warmth rose in her heart. Perhaps even Big Brother Ning himself didn't know, but when he was focused, he really was very attractive. Chapter 490. The phoenix spirit entered Zhao Liusu's body and spread in her meridians. Ningchen looked more and more serious and his heart sank. He didn't find anything unusual. On the contrary, it was too normal, so normal that it was a little abnormal. This girl's martial arts foundation was almost perfect, as if it was created according to the will of a person. In this world, he had seen many martial arts geniuses. The most talented one was undoubtedly Mu Qingxue, who had stepped into the Khanate realm when all of them were still in the acquired realm. However, no matter how extraordinary a person's foundation was, there would always be various shortcomings. However, he found almost no shortcomings in Liusu, which was really incredible. After a quarter of an hour, Ningchen stopped. He looked at the girl in front of him and said seriously, "Liusu, do you believe in Brother Ning?" Although she didn't know why he asked this, Zhao Liusu nodded affirmatively and answered. Ningchen stood up and waved his hand to close the door and the window. He said softly, "Relax. Don't have any thoughts of resistance. If you don't, you and I may get hurt." Zhao Liusu nodded and agreed obediently. Ningchen's expression hardened. He raised his hand and placed it between the girl's eyebrows. A faintly discernible cry of a phoenix was heard. Inside the room, a giant shadow of a phoenix appeared. Then, an illusory shadow walked out and merged with the girl's spiritual consciousness. He didn't find anything in Liusu's body, so he could only check if there was anything wrong with her 3 souls. Although it was a little risky, there was no other way. In the divine sense space, the most unknown secret place in the human body, Ningchen's soul walked in it. After experiencing the influence of the 7 souls, joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, evil, and desire, his steps became heavier and heavier. Human emotions, no matter joy, anger, sorrow, or joy, were the original sins that increased the burden on the soul. Without the protection of the body, the soul of knowing destiny who had left the body experienced the 7 souls' emotions. Every step he took was extremely difficult, as if there were 7 mountains pressing down on him. After searching for a long time, Ningchen suddenly stopped. Looking at the 3 illusory shadows in front of him, his eyes narrowed slightly. Found them. The 3 souls in the human world, the heaven soul, the earth soul, and the life soul. Ningchen glanced at the 2 souls of heaven and earth and fixed his gaze on the most important life spirit. At this moment, knowing destiny, who was always calm, suddenly changed his expression. Since she had yet to enter the innate realm, her soul had yet to solidify. A mark that had never been seen before was constantly rotating in the little girl's life spirit. It was silent and undetectable. Ningchen suppressed the anger in his heart and flipped his right hand. Across the boundless space, he guided the power in his body into Lu Su's soul, wanting to take out the mark that this person had planted. However, at this moment, a strong repulsive force was emitted. The mark seemed to have a spirit, and it was preventing external forces from entering. A cold light flashed in Ningchen's eyes. He was worried that he would hurt the little girl's life spirit, so he did not dare to do it forcefully. He circulated his phoenix essence and turned it into many restrictions, sealing the imprint. After doing all this, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. His soul vanished and returned to his body. In the room, the phoenix shadow returned to his body. Ningchen opened his eyes and looked at the little girl in front of him. He smiled and said, "I was thinking too much. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just a little stupid. However, I can't cure this illness." "You're the stupid one." Zhao Liusu did not suspect anything. She wrinkled her nose and said unhappily, "All right, go back and rest. Don't tell anyone about what happened tonight, including your mother." Ningchen raised his hand and rubbed the little girl's hair as he softly reminded her, "Hey, I'll remember. I'm leaving now. I'll come and play with you tomorrow." Zhao Liusu nodded and smiled at him. Then she turned and walked out of the room. After the little girl left, Ningchen sat back down at the table. He silently picked up the teacup. Just as he was about to drink it, there was a bang and it shattered. The tea and blood mixed together and dripped down through the gaps between his fingers. His trembling hand showed that its owner was unable to suppress his anger. He did not recognize that mark, but he had been possessed by the Disaster King before. No one was more familiar with that feeling than him. The mark in Lu Su's life spirit had its own consciousness. Although it had not awakened yet, it was only a matter of time. From the looks of it, Lu Su's existence was just a tool prepared for this mark to possess her. Lu Su's mother did not seem to know about this. What about her father, the Zhao clan's clan leader, and the people of the Zenith Pavilion? What role did they play in this? The ugliness of the human heart was truly disgusting. How is it? Do you understand the disappointment of the Nether King when he descended to the mortal world? The greed of the human heart is the ugliest thing in this world. Only destruction can save them. An illusory gray figure appeared beside Ningchen. It had black eyes, black hair, and a face that was exactly the same. Its identity was clear. The demonic body that had corroded a part of its soul had its own consciousness. Although its power had been temporarily sealed, it had not disappeared. At this moment, it sensed the anger in Ning Chen's heart and came out. What do you want to say? Ning Chen glanced at the demonic body that had appeared. Let me out and I'll help you kill them all. This way, you can also get what you want, said the demonic body calmly. Do you think I'll make a deal with the devil? Asked Ning Chen indifferently. You and I are one. We're bound together for good or ill. There's no such thing as a deal. As long as you can find the power above the mortal world as soon as possible, it doesn't matter if I go out or not. 10 years ago, since you were able to ruthlessly sacrifice millions of lives, why are you so indecisive today? It's different. Ningchen got up and walked to the window. He took a towel and wiped the blood off his hands. He calmly replied, killing them won't save Liusu. Moreover, I still don't know who the mastermind is. Do I have to kill them all? Those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. After fighting with Fan Lingyue so many times, you should understand the importance of this sentence better than anyone, said the demonic body coldly. I don't reject using force to solve problems, but I also don't want to kill people needlessly. I've never doubted Fan Lingyue's ideals, but even now, I can't agree with her methods. Although I don't know how to achieve the goal of world peace, I'm very sure that 100 generations of prosperity is not achieved through coercion. The human heart is the same. I can't kill everyone, and I don't have the right to do so, said Ningchen firmly. Your naivety will make you pay an unbearable price in the end. I look forward to the day when you take the initiative to let me out. After saying that, the demonic body gradually dissipated and merged back into Ning Chen's body. In front of the window, Ning Chen looked at the starry sky in the distance. A trace of longing flashed through his eyes. The homeland of West Buddha, the Forbidden Land. On the mountain peak that reached into the 9 heavens, ancient temples were located. It was a holy land for Buddhist cultivation. At this moment, a woman in a green dress walked up the mountain step by step. West Jade Mountain was full of spring. The 4 seasons were not affected by the heavens. There were no abnormalities in the first half of the journey. However, when she reached a height of 10,000 feet, the woman's feet suddenly sank and her figure staggered. An indescribable pressure pressed down from the mountain peak. It was heavy and condensed, making it difficult for her to take half a step forward. The woman endured the pain on her body and refused to retreat. She continued to walk up the mountain step by step. At the same time, 2 female cultivators dressed in Buddhist robes appeared on the mountain peak. They looked at the woman who was struggling to walk down the mountain and remained silent. The woman walked for 6 hours in just a short 100 feet. The bright moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the mountain path, but not the road ahead. A day passed and the woman walked another 100 feet. The pressure from the mountain became more and more terrifying. The sweat that flowed out wet her clothes again and again. Every step she took, she had to stop for a long time. Not bad, said one of the female cultivators. It's a pity that her foundation is a little weak. Otherwise, we would have another junior sister. The other female cultivator looked at the woman at the foot of the mountain and shook her head regretfully. According to the rules of West Jade Mountain, only those who could climb up the mountain with their own strength were qualified to become a disciple. There were no shortcuts other than that. They admired this determined woman, but first, she had to climb up the mountain. For nearly 100 years, no one had been able to climb up the mountain. It was cruel, but it was also true. Another day passed, yet the woman still only walked 300 m. Her black hair hung down casually, her exhausted face was completely pale, and her sweat had dried up long ago. Her skin was cracked, and traces of blood faintly seeped out, causing her to be extremely miserable. She's reached her limit? One of the female cultivators sighed and said regretfully. The other person was silent. She looked down the mountain without moving, as if she was waiting for a miracle to happen. On the third day, the woman walked another 100 feet. Her figure staggered as if she would fall down at any time. On the fourth day, on the fifth day, on the sixth day, the two people on the mountain were silent. Looking at the figure at the foot of the mountain getting closer and closer, there was a trace of expectation in their hearts. 100 feet, 100 feet. She didn't know how many days she had walked. Even she couldn't remember it clearly. However, she persisted and walked. Her mind was already blank. She just kept walking without changing. Chingy, how long did you walk on this path back then? One of the female cultivators sighed and looked at the woman in blue beside her. 12 hours. The woman in blue said. How did it feel? The female cultivator asked again. It was worse than death. The woman in blue said honestly. I walked for 2 days. Third senior sister was the fastest. She came up in 4 hours. The female cultivator was silent for a moment before saying. Third senior sister was publicly recognized as the most talented person on the mountain. When she came up the mountain, she also broke the record of being the fastest. She came up in less than 4 hours. However, third senior sister was not the most powerful person on the mountain because she could not bear hardships. This path had been cultivated by the successive lords of the West Jade Mountain, one sword at a time. Therefore, it was the most difficult path to walk in the world. It's been 6 days. The woman in blue murmured softly. She still hadn't come up after 6 days. This meant that her talent wasn't surprising. She might be good in the mortal world, but there were too many geniuses on the mountain. However, what she cared about was that this woman didn't give up after walking for 6 days. Her willpower was really shocking. On the 7th day, on the 8th day, on the 9th day, on the 10th day, after 10 days and nights, the woman finally reached the mountain. At this moment, in front of the two female cultivators, the void rolled. A figure with a terrifying aura that even made the world tremble walked out. Looking at the woman in front of him, he said calmly, Name. Qing Ning. Chapter 491. In the east wing of the Zhao family, the first rays of the morning sun had just shone down when someone knocked on the door, startling the birds on the pear tree not far away. Without waiting for a response from the room, the door was pushed open with a creak, and a pretty little girl walked in with a smile on her face. Don't knock next time, it's too troublesome. Ning Chen turned around and looked at the girl. That won't do, you have to be polite. Zhao Liusu walked forward in a good mood. Ning Chen smiled and didn't want to bother with her anymore. This girl couldn't understand good and bad words. She was too stupid. Today, people from Tianji City and the royal family will come to Swallow Cloud Mountain to pray for the dynasty. Uncle Sect Master and some elders of the Zhao family will also be there. Do you want to go and watch the fun? Zhao Liusu asked with a smile. People from Tianji City? Surprise flashed through Ning Chen's eyes, but he shook his head without hesitation and refused. Not going. Why? Zhao Liusu pouted and said unhappily. Are you stupid? What if people from Tianji City see through my identity? Ning Chen said unhappily. Zhao Liusu thought about it and felt that it was true. Then I'll go by myself. I'll find you when I come back. Zhao Liusu decisively gave up on a certain someone and left with a smile. Seeing this, Ning Chen despised her in his heart. She was too disloyal. Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, Qingxi Lake was surrounded by mist. On Qingxi Bridge, scholars and beauties came and went. It was a beautiful scene. In an ancient temple outside the mountain, Bodhi built a pagoda. On the glazed stone, there was a faint trace of red. The Buddhas used their blood to build the pagoda. For several days and nights, they poured spirituality into the pagoda. Master, what are you building? A little monk beside him asked, puzzled. Demon subduing pagoda, the white-robed, white-haired Buddha said softly. What's the use of it? The little monk continued to ask. Suppressing demons in the human world. The white-robed Buddha replied as he built the pagoda. Do demons really exist in the world? The little monk with a low cultivation base didn't know much and asked curiously. If there are Buddhas in the world, then there are demons. Becoming a Buddha or a demon is just a choice made by the human heart. As for demons, all living things have spirits. It's not strange for them to cultivate a demon body, the white-robed Buddha replied. Are both demons and devils evil? The little monk asked in confusion. Sometimes, good and evil are not absolute. Do you think the devil who has saved the world is good or evil? Subhuti asked softly. Good, the little monk said affirmatively. What if the devil loses his original heart and starts killing? Subhuti asked again. Evil. The small monk hesitated for a moment before replying. Supreme Bodhi did not say anything after hearing this. The boundary between good and evil was often not so clear. The human world needed to be grateful to those experts from the divine prefecture of the eastern region. Unfortunately, after the divine tribulation, the heroes of the past had lost themselves and began to wreak havoc in the human world that they had once protected. At the same time, on Swallow Cloud Mountain's Wishing Peak, a group of figures walked over. The leader was a purple-robed old man. His steps were slow, and his aged face was filled with fatigue. Beside the old man were two princes of the Xuanji Empire. Behind them, the imperial family's experts and the Zhao family's experts followed closely behind. They were on high alert. The powerful formation was not inferior to the emperor's. In the Xuanji Empire, the divine predictors of each generation had a supreme status. Even the emperor of the Xuanji Empire had to treat them like students and be extremely respectful. At the back of the group, Zhao Liusu looked left and right. At first, she was very excited, but as time passed, she gradually lost interest. Boredom was written all over her face. She regretted coming along. On the east side of Swallow Cloud Mountain, beside Qingxi Lake, Hong Yi stood quietly. She looked at the Wishing Peak in the distance and did not move for a long time. The boat swayed in the lake, and the boatmen's singing could be heard. The most beautiful scenery in the northern part of Zhongzhou would attract many young people to come and enjoy it every year. Sir, it's going to rain soon. Do you want an umbrella? A 12 or 13-year-old girl walked over. She looked at the young man in front of her with her big bright eyes. Ningchen came back to his senses and looked at the little girl in front of him. He smiled and said, Okay, how many do you have? 2, the little girl replied. Ningchen took out a small piece of silver and placed it in the little girl's hand. He smiled and said, I'll take all of them. The little girl looked troubled and said, I don't have change for them. No need to change. Quickly go home, Ningchen said with a gentle expression. Thank you, sir. The little girl thanked him and handed the last 2 umbrellas to the person in front of her. However, just as Ningchen took the umbrellas, there was a loud rumble in the sky. Thunder roared and dark clouds covered the last ray of sunlight. In the gloomy sky, drops of rain fell. In the blink of an eye, the entire Qingxi Lake was covered in a haze. Wait! Under the rain, the little girl turned to run home. Seeing this, Ningchen reached out and stopped her. He opened an umbrella and handed it to her. He said softly, The rain is too heavy. If you get wet, you'll get sick. Take this umbrella. The little girl hurriedly shook her head and said, This umbrella was bought by Big Brother. I can't take it. I still have one. Think about it. If you get sick, you'll have to take very, very bitter medicine. Moreover, you won't be able to sell umbrellas anymore, Ningchen said softly as he squatted down and wiped the rain off the little girl's face. Thank you, Big Brother. The little girl thought for a moment and took the umbrella in the end. She smiled sweetly at him and thanked him again. Okay, quickly go home. Be careful. The road is slippery in the rain. Don't fall. Ningchen rubbed the little girl's hair and smiled. The little girl nodded her head vigorously. Then, with the umbrella in her hand, she jogged home. Looking at the little girl's small figure in the distance, the gentleness in Ningchen's eyes gradually disappeared. He sighed softly, opened the umbrella, and walked towards the other side of the lake. Children from poor families matured early. However, this pure heart was the most precious thing in the world. On the Qingxi Bridge, pedestrians hurried along. Ningchen walked on the bridge and looked at the scenery under the curtain of rain. His footsteps gradually slowed down. The lake in the rain was like the most beautiful scenery in the world. It was difficult to see clearly, but it gave off a hazy and otherworldly feeling. "Sir, can we share an umbrella?" At this moment, an ethereal voice rang out. A beautiful figure in a blue and white dress appeared under the umbrella. She raised her head and looked at the man in front of her. Her eyes were like stars, so beautiful that it was difficult for people to look away. Ningchen was momentarily dazed, but then a strange light flashed through his eyes. He asked in confusion, "Miss, have we met before? Does sir say this to every girl you meet for the first time?" The girl asked softly, "My apologies. I was rude. I just felt that you looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen you before. May I ask where you're going? If it's on the way, I can send you off." Ningchen suppressed his doubts and asked. "Northern Imperial City," the girl replied. Ningchen nodded and said no more. He held the umbrella and walked in the direction of the ancient city. The man and woman in the rain did not say anything. They walked step by step in the rain. There was nothing out of place, as if this was how it should be. When the two of them were about to leave Qingxi Lake, Ningchen looked back at Wishing Peak in the distance. A moment later, he looked away and walked away with the girl. On Wishing Peak, rain continued to fall from the sky. In front of everyone, a purple-robed elder stood quietly in the rain, praying for the dynasty and for the world. The divine tribulation had just passed, and the demonic calamity had arrived. Tianjizi could not bear to see the world suffer again, so he prayed to the heavens to protect the world. Rumble, thunder fell from the sky, illuminating the world. The people under the thunder were all soaked by the rain, and they looked very wretched. However, even so, no one dared to go up and disturb them. They could only wait patiently. At the back of the group, Zhao Liusu pouted. This trip was not worth it at all. Boom! Another thunderous roar shook the heavens and the earth. The moment the lightning blocked everyone's vision, on Praying Peak, illusions swept out from behind the cliffs. Saber light flashed and slashed at Tianjizi, who was at the front of the team. In a short moment, the imperial family's consecrators and Zhao family's experts came back to their senses. Their expressions changed drastically, and their figures flashed, quickly moving forward to stop them. What a heavy burden! Behind Tianjizi, the two princes' eyes turned cold. Their palms blocked the sword light, and with a clang, they blocked the killing light. At the same time, Zhao Dengkong and the four imperial family's consecrators arrived and joined forces to block wave after wave of attacks. "It's you guys again." Zhao Dengkong looked at the black-clothed half-venerables in front of him with a gloomy expression. Just as he was about to attack again, his expression suddenly changed. Oh no, they were luring the tiger away from the mountain. At the back of the group, three half-venerables appeared at the same time and destroyed all obstacles. They immediately took Zhao Liusu, who had not yet recovered from the shock, and quickly left. Zhao Dengkong rushed over and condensed his yuan with a flip of his palm. Vigorous palm energy roared out and rushed towards the three. However, it was already too late. Two half-venerables joined forces to block the former's attack, while the other half-venerables took Zhao Liusu and headed north. Boom! Lightning flashed, reflecting the Zhao family's master's furious expression. He had calculated everything but still lost. He did not expect that he would make a mistake here. On the mountain peak, shadows retreated one after another. Among the four imperial family's consecrators, Tianjizi turned his head and looked at the direction where the assassins left. He sighed tiredly and said, "The prayer is over. Let's go back." The two princes respectfully bowed and immediately followed the old man down the mountain. The four imperial family's consecrators followed with calm expressions. There was no change in their expressions because the Zhao family's daughter was kidnapped. Their mission was only to protect Tianjizi. The life and death of the others did not matter, even if it was the Zhao family's master or the two princes. "Lord Tianjizi, can you tell Liusu about the misfortune of this trip?" Zhao Dengkong could not help but ask the moment they passed by each other. Tianjizi stopped and sighed softly, Her life is not in danger. However, it is still a sign of great danger. Quickly send someone to rescue her. In Bayou City, the rain did not stop. In front of a secluded mansion, two people stopped. The woman looked at the man beside her and said calmly, "Thank you for sending me off. May I know how to address you?" "Ningchen, where is the lady?" Bai Yunlian. Chapter 492. In the Zhao family's Inua Tower, a black robe flashed by. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his cold eyes were filled with killing intent. In front of the hole pierced by the Yin Moon Bao the day before, a series of temporary restrictive spells started to shake violently. A blood-red light flashed across the air, and then disappeared. Within the pagoda, Zhao Yulan's eyes suddenly snapped open. When she saw the person in front of her, her eyes flickered with killing intent. "Who are you?" asked Zhao Yulan coldly. The black-robed figure didn't say anything. He clenched his right hand, and in the midst of the blood-red light, a ferocious sword appeared. In an instant, the sound of thunder outside the tower became louder, illuminating the dusky sky. Crimson Viper. Zhao Yulan's pupils constricted. This was going to be troublesome. The black clothes fluttered, and a sword shocked the gods. Vicious might rippled outwards, cutting apart all of the restrictions in its path. Zhao Yulan waved her hand, causing the dark moon to tremble and descend from the sky. After several sieges, the allied forces led by the only one from the Taibai prefecture had already sent the red refining demon's fighting characteristics to all the major sections. They couldn't fight against this demon with brute force. Otherwise, they would be defeated without a doubt. The best way was to suppress it with speed and reduce the chance for it to attack. With this thought in mind, Zhao Yulan prepared to draw her bow and suppress the enemy's attack. Unexpectedly, before she could draw her bow, the black-clothed figure had already disappeared. In the blink of an eye, depravity was so fast that no one had time to react. Zhao Yulan subconsciously dodged to the side. But then she heard a ripping sound as blood dripped down from her arm, dyeing her clothes red. How could this be? Zhao Yulan was shocked. The information from the various sects clearly stated that the Crimson Refinement Devil was more focused on power and less focused on speed. Clearly, something was wrong with the current situation. The information was wrong. Zhao family's Yulan had made a mistake and her every move was restricted. The black-clothed man flashed past at an extremely fast speed, each sword faster than the previous one. He did not give the former the slightest chance to catch her breath. Without enough time to condense true essence, Zhao Yulan could only passively dodge. However, the black-clothed man's sword was astonishingly fast. There was no way to dodge. Yinin's sentiments. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous, Zhao Yulan took the blow head-on. She waved her delicate hand, and her true essence surged into the moon. Instantly, the heavenly bow was knocked, and an arrow pierced through the air. The arrow light arrived, but the man in black didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced. He seemed to be very familiar with the former's moves. He hid behind the woman and formed a sword with his finger. The arrow arrived, and so did the sword. Blood splattered everywhere. Zhao Yulan let out a muffled groan and staggered back several steps. Her mouth was bright red. The battle was so fast that it left everyone shocked. From beginning to end, only several breaths of time had passed. The Eclipse family's Yulan was miserably defeated. Her body was heavily wounded and blood flowed out, dyeing the pagoda stone beneath her red. The black-clothed figure took out a piece of black cloth and dipped it in the fresh blood flowing from the woman's body. Immediately, he waved his right hand and covered the heavenly bow in the air with the black cloth. "I owe you my life for now." After saying that, the black-clothed figure grabbed the Inua heavenly bow from the black cloth and quickly retreated. Pooh! Zhao Yulan coughed up another mouthful of blood. Her body was seriously injured, and her cultivation base was sealed. She fell down into the pagoda, her vision blurring. Yulan. Hearing the commotion, the two Zhao clan's grand elders hurried over. When they saw the unconscious woman on the ground, they were shocked and hurried over to check on her. The heavenly bow was lost and Yulan was heavily injured. This was a shocking result. It happened so quickly that the Zhao family's supreme elders didn't even have time to react. How could this be? With Yolan's strength, even the sect master wouldn't be able to easily defeat her. Could it be that a sovereign personally came? Asked one of the Zhao clan's supreme elders gloomily. It doesn't seem like it. The remnant pressure is far from a sovereign's level. From the traces of the battle, Yulan didn't even have the strength to fight back. Or perhaps it could be said that Yulan was completely suppressed from the start. The other Zhao clan's supreme elder calmly analyzed. Quickly wake Yulan up. I'll report this matter to the Grand Elder. Then we can discuss how to take back the heavenly bow. That's all we can do. A white-clothed figure walked over from the eastern wing. She opened the door and sat in front of a tea table, drinking tea while waiting for the trouble that would come every day. For hours later, the sky had darkened. The Zhao clan's major figures were gathered in the main hall. On the main seat, Zhao Tengkong's expression was incomparably gloomy. His terrifying aura made it hard for the people below to breathe. When did this happen? Asked Zhao Tengkong coldly. 5 hours ago, an elder of the Grand Supreme Pavilion said. Zhao Tengkong clenched his fists. In just a short day, not only had Lu Su been kidnapped, even the Yin Moon Bao had been taken away. Reporting to the sect master, Elder Yulan has awakened. Just at this moment, a maid walked over and knelt on the ground. What did she say? Asked Zhao Tengkong. Elder Yulan said that the person who took the bow was the Scarlet Refining Devil, said the maid. Bang! Zhao Tengkong's armrest on the right side of his chair was completely crushed. The fury he had been suppressing for an entire day could no longer be suppressed at this moment. Since we know the main culprit, gather all the sects to discuss how to punish the devil once more. As he spoke, a white-robed old man with a white beard walked over and sat at the head of the seats below. He spoke calmly. Grand Elder. One by one, the Zhao clan's experts stood up and bowed. Zhao Tengkong nodded slightly and then asked, other than the matter of taking back the Yin Moon Bao, we also need to quickly resolve the matter of Lu Su being kidnapped. Does Grand Elder have any suggestions? There are priorities. Zhao Liusu's matter can be discussed after we take back the Yin Moon Bao. The heavenly Bao is the foundation of the Zhao clan, and we can't lose it, said Zhao Qingyang. In the Zhao clan's heart, is a human life not worth a broken Bao? Just as Zhao Tengkong was about to speak, a bone-chilling voice resounded in the ears of everyone in the hall. In the next moment, Su Yi appeared. She looked at the old man at the head of the table with undisguised killing intent in her eyes. When has an outsider's right to interfere in the Zhao clan's matters? Asked Zhao Qingyang. Mr. Bai, I know you're worried about Lu Su's safety, but please don't be impatient. The Zhao clan will definitely come up with a solution that satisfies both sides, said Zhao Tengkong. Sect Master, don't you think this matter is too simple? The Scarlet Refinement Demon has become second nature to killing people. It will definitely appear again soon. As for the people who kidnapped Zhao Liusu, we still don't have any clues, said Zhao Qingyang. Grand Elder, you don't need to worry about this. I will send people to Tianji City for help. As long as we can find traces of those assassins, we'll be able to save Lu Su, said Zhao Tengkong. Is that so? Then let's split up. The sect master will be in charge of saving Zhao Liusu. As for the matter of taking back the Bao, leave it to the Grand Pavilion, said Zhao Qingyang. All right. Zhao Tengkong nodded in agreement. After the discussion, the Grand Pavilion's elders left one by one. The only ones left were the sect master's experts. Sect master, it's not worth giving up power to the Grand Pavilion for Zhao Liusu, said an elder. I've already made up my mind. There's no need to say anything more. Also, quickly notify Lu Su's father and tell him to hurry back, said Zhao Tengkong. Yes. The elder sighed and no longer said anything else. Mr. Bai, I might have to trouble you with Lu Su's matter again. I hope you won't refuse, said Zhao Tengkong sincerely. Yes. Ning Chen nodded in agreement. He immediately turned around and walked out of the hall. When he reached the door, he stopped for a moment and said, since Lu Su isn't in the Zhao family, there's no need for me to stay. I'll temporarily stay in Beiyu City for a period of time. If there's any news or needs, Sect Master can send someone over to notify me. After he finished speaking, Ning Chen strode off without looking back. Just where did this person come from? Ping ran, have you still not found anything? Asked a middle-aged man below. No, there's no clue at all. It's as if this person appeared out of thin air. We can't find anything about his past. Opposite him, a woman in luxurious clothes shook her head. That's strange. Even if he's a disciple of one of those great secluded sects in the Central Plains, there should be some clues. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. Let's put this matter aside for now. As long as he sincerely treats Lu Su as a friend, he's a friend to the Zhao family and not an enemy. His identity will be discovered sooner or later, said Zhao Tengkong calmly. Within a secluded mansion in Beiyu City, a woman in a blue and white dress stood silently. She looked at the sky that was always covered in dark clouds. Her eyes were calm like stars, without the slightest impurity. She was ethereal and beautiful. Oh! Suddenly, the woman frowned slightly. Her gaze moved to a small mansion on the side, and specks of light flashed through her eyes. At the side of the mansion, Suyi and the porter worked together, one in front and one behind. They used all their strength to knock down a large wooden box in a small courtyard. Young master, what's inside? Why is it so heavy? Asked the porter as he gasped for breath. Silver and copper coins? Ning Chen straightened his aching back and replied. The porter was stunned for a moment. Then he asked in confusion, Young master, why don't you exchange this much silver for silver notes? It'll save you the trouble and it'll be safer. I don't want to either, but the owner of this mansion said that he only wants silver, and it has to be broken silver, said Ning Chen unhappily. Young master, could it be that you've encountered a seller with a dirty background? Otherwise, who would do business like this? Asked the porter worriedly. Whatever. Let's settle down first. It's not easy to buy a cheap mansion in the city these days. Ning Chen sighed. The porter nodded in agreement. He didn't say anything else and continued to help lift the box. After the two of them moved the box into the house, Ning Chen poured a cup of tea for the porter. Then he took out a piece of broken silver from the box and paid the porter. Young master, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. The owner of this mansion is a bit strange. Young master should be careful, reminded the porter. Thank you. I'll be careful. Ning Chen smiled. The porter took his load and left. Ning Chen was the only one left in the empty mansion. It was so quiet that it was a bit frightening. A pair of beautiful eyes looked over from the neighboring mansion. Even though they were separated by two walls, they still gave off an indescribable pressure. Ning Chen sensed the gaze from the other side of the courtyard, and the strange light in his eyes grew stronger. He was absolutely certain that he had met this woman before. Why didn't he have any impression of her? Bai Yunlian was an unfamiliar name. Just who was she? Was their meeting on Qingxi Bridge a coincidence, or did she have some other goal? After thinking for a long time, he couldn't come up with an answer. Ning Chen didn't waste any more time and left the mansion. On the other side of the courtyard, Bai Yunlian's lips curled. Had he finally been unable to endure it? Chapter 493. Dark clouds rolled in the sky above the northern imperial city. Thunder rumbled and the sky darkened. The oppressive atmosphere made people's hearts feel heavy. In a corner of the city, the two of them met again in front of a secluded mansion. The atmosphere was very quiet. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him. The sense of familiarity in his heart grew stronger and stronger. However, he still couldn't remember when he had seen her. Young master, what's the matter? Bai Yunlian was the first to speak. Ning Chen came back to his senses and smiled. I am Bai Yujing. I just moved here and live next door. I want to go out and do some things. Unfortunately, I don't have an umbrella at home. Can I borrow one from you? Young master, what's your name? Bai Yunlian frowned. Bai Yujing, Ning Chen replied. Only then did Bai Yunlian notice that the clothes and appearance of the person in front of him had changed. His beautiful eyes flashed with an undetectable light. So he had changed his identity. What's your name? Ning Chen asked despite knowing the answer. Bai Yunlian. So you're from the same family. What fate? Ning Chen smiled and tried to establish a relationship without blushing. Is that so? What a coincidence. Bai Yunlian said indifferently. They hadn't seen each other in a few days, but this person's skin was still so thick. Boom! The thunder grew louder and louder. A drop of rain fell and grew bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, the entire northern imperial city was covered in rain. Young miss, can I go in and take shelter from the rain? Ning Chen glanced at the rain that was getting heavier and heavier. Bai Yunlian turned around and opened a path. Come in. Ning Chen walked into the mansion and looked around. He couldn't help but be surprised. He could tell that this woman had also moved here not long ago. It was a bit strange. There couldn't be so many coincidences in the world. This woman definitely knew him. She just didn't point it out. Young miss, have we met before? Ning Chen turned around and asked. Someone said the same thing to me yesterday. Do all men like to say things like that to women they don't know? Bai Yunlian said indifferently. Perhaps. Ning Chen smiled and didn't ask any more questions. Thunder rumbled in the horizon, and the falling rain made the scenery outside hazy. Bai Yunlian stood quietly in front of the door, not saying a word. He was very quiet. Ning Chen looked at the former and tried to recall. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember where he had seen such a woman. Strange. Ning Chen felt even more strange. If someone looked like him, it would be normal for no one to recognize him on the streets. However, how could he not have any impression of a woman like Bai Yunlian after meeting her? Bai Yunlian turned a blind eye to the former's gaze, as if he was already used to it. Bang bang bang. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the courtyard next door. It could be heard clearly even from a distance. Ning Chen retracted his gaze and looked at the house next to him. He frowned. Could it be that he was here to collect the money for the house? Miss, can I borrow an umbrella? Perhaps the owner of the house is here to collect money, said Ning Chen. When Bai Yunlian heard this, he turned around and walked back into the house. He took out an oil paper umbrella and handed it to the former. I will return it to the girl soon. Ning Chen took the umbrella and walked out of the mansion. Bai Yunlian looked at the former's back and a strange smile appeared on her face. She had previously thought that he was very smart, but it turned out that he wasn't able to guess everything. In front of the house, there were 3 men and 1 woman standing next to the carriage. When they saw the young man walking over, their expressions clearly weren't very good. Sorry, sir. I went to borrow an umbrella. Ning Chen smiled apologetically to the 4 of them and quickly opened the door to let them in. Where's the money? Is it ready? The only woman among the 4 of them coldly asked. It's ready. It's in the house. Ning Chen nodded. You 2 follow him in and take the money. The woman looked at the 2 people behind her and calmly said, The 2 men accepted the order and walked into the courtyard. Looking at the young man who still hadn't moved, they glared at him and said, What are you waiting for? Right away, Ning Chen replied and quickly walked over. Not long after, the 2 men carried a large box out and placed it on the carriage. Then they walked in front of the woman and respectfully said, Miss, there's no mistake. Give him the deed to the house and the land, said the woman indifferently. Yes. The man holding the umbrella for the woman took out the deed to the house and the land and handed it over. From now on, this house is yours. Ning Chen took it and casually glanced over it. He smiled. Many thanks. Do you want to go in and have some tea? No need. Huaishuan, let's go. The woman spoke before turning around and entering the carriage. The man put away the umbrella and sat in front of the carriage with the other 2. Seeing them leave, Ning Chen gently shook his head. Strange things happened every year, but this year there were especially many. These people didn't seem to have simple backgrounds. What did they need so much money for? Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, in the ancient temple outside the mountain, Buddhist believers came to pray to Buddha. The world was filled with suffering and countless things that didn't go their way. The majority of Buddhist believers came to pray to Buddha. Rather than saying they were praying to Buddha, it was better to say they were praying for peace of mind. Within the temple, Bodhi continued to build the pagoda day and night. Drops of Buddhist blood dyed the pagoda stone, causing it to shine even brighter. Within Gold Buddha Temple, all the monks knew that a Buddha had come to build the pagoda. Even the abbot was exceptionally respectful to him. The abbot had said that this was a true Buddha. a Buddha who was merciful and cared for all living beings. Master, my grandfather is sick. Do you think Buddha will help my grandfather recover? A little boy in shabby clothes looked at the white-robed, white-haired Buddha in front of him and asked expectantly, "It will?" Bodhi raised a hand and gently patted the little boy's head. The little boy smiled. One of his canine teeth was missing, which looked a bit funny. However, his clean smile was very sincere, without any other emotions mixed in. 2 days later, the little boy came again. This time, the smile on his face was even wider. He looked at the Buddha in the temple and said, "Master, my grandfather's illness has been cured. It must be the Buddha's manifestation." Bodhi squatted down and wiped the dust off the little boy's face. There is no Buddha in this world. Buddha is a human's heart. If you do good, you will be rewarded with good. Do you understand? The little boy nodded as if he understood. He asked, "Master, if there is no Buddha in this world, then what is the temple worshipping?" "Hope," Bodhi replied softly. The little boy entered the temple and bowed to the Buddha before leaving. Not long after, the abbot came over. He was an old monk of virtue and prestige. He looked at the white-robed, white-haired Buddha in front of him and said respectfully, "Venerable, there has been a lot of rain at the foot of the mountain recently. The water level of Qingxi Lake has already exceeded the warning line. It could overflow at any time and bring disaster to the villages downstream." Bodhi sighed softly and stopped what he was doing. He took off his Buddha robe and handed it to the old monk. He said, "Abbot, send people downstream to cover the Buddha robe on the embankment. The flood will be stopped." "Many thanks, Venerable." The old abbot took the Buddha robe and bowed with his hands clasped together before retreating. Bodhi collected his thoughts and continued to focus on building the pagoda. Demons were wreaking havoc on the world. He hoped that there was still time to build the pagoda. Rumble. Thunder rumbled in the sky. The light illuminated the dark sky and the benevolent heart of the Buddha. In Beiyu City, Zhao Liusu had been taken away for 10 days. However, there was still no news from the Zhao family. Ning Chen also did not go to the Zhao family again. He knew very well that Liusu would not be in any danger for the time being. He could not do anything about that mark, and the others were the same. Right now, Zhao Tenkong should be even more anxious than him. If there was any news, he would definitely send someone to deliver it in time. At this time, no one would complain about having too much combat power. Another thing was that after 10 days, he still could not remember when he had seen that lady by. Even though every time he saw her eyes, he felt an indescribable sense of familiarity. When had he seen her? Ning Chen knocked hard on his head. It didn't make sense. How could he not remember? In the dead of night, Ning Chen left the courtyard and headed east. 3,000 miles away, in the sword-forging manor, a black figure flashed past. His killing intent soared into the sky, waking everyone in the manor. In the manor, an old man sitting in a wheelchair looked at the black-clothed young man in front of him with a serious expression. His gaze turned cold. "It's you," said the sword-forging master. "Last time I spared your life. Today, I've come to take it back," said the black-clothed figure calmly. "Then let's see if you have the ability." The sword-forging master pointed a finger, and intense sword out of his body. This swordsman's cultivation base had advanced by half a step. He was almost at the chosen realm. The black-clothed figure waved his hand, and red light flashed. Qi Lian appeared, and a terrifying pressure swept out. "Please." The black-clothed figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. His sword contained monstrous killing intent, and it cut through the endless night. The sword-forging master's expression didn't panic at all. His sword pointed a finger, and a shockwave spread out. Sword-forging master. In the distance, one figure after another appeared. When they saw the black-clothed figure in the battlefield, they were clearly shaken. "Don't come over!" shouted the sword-forging master. His sword energy turned into a wall of swords that blocked the battlefield, preventing anyone from entering. "Your benevolence will sever your last hope of survival. Sword-forging master, help please." As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed figure condensed yuan with his fingers and slashed it across the sword. Instantly, a torrent of undercurrents spread out endlessly. A terrifying, ferocious aura covered the 9 heavens and the bright moon. The sword-forging master condensed his yuan and strands of intense sword into the sky. His extraordinary sword had been raised to the peak. He had spent his entire life guarding the demon sword, protecting the common people. How could he lower his head in front of a demon cultivator? A king meeting a king, and a sword meeting a sword. Peak sword, intense sword above the two of them, surpassing all other swords in the world. The two kings at the peak of the sword began their battle once more. At the same time, a white-robed figure appeared 100 miles away from the sword-forging manor. She calmly watched the battle in the distance. Under the bright moon, her ethereal eyes seemed even more beautiful. Chapter 494. Sword Crafting Manor was a life and death battle between kings of the sword. Scarlet Drill's sword light tore through the night, and the endless blood made this battle even more tragic. Black Robe moved, and Scarlet Drill took his life. The path to the Yellow Springs opened. The two different swords were shockingly fast. Sword Crafting Master's wheelchair moved, dodging the swords. In an instant, sword fingers and swords clashed. With a boom, the wheelchair sank 3 inches into the ground, and dust filled the air. Sword Crafting Master, you've become weaker. Black Robe's sword spun, and the spinning sword moved another 3 inches forward. Sword Crafting Master's movements were restricted, so he slapped the ground and stabilized himself. Then he gathered the manor's earth energy and used 70% of his strength. With a loud boom, the battle separated. The two retreated several steps, and blood dripped onto the ground. Demonic technique, blood flame. Blood flames rose, and sword intent surged. Phoenix fire gathered to form a killing aura, and the sword split the 9 heavens as it slashed down. 100 generations of Jianghu end with one sword. Sword Crafting Master gathered all his true essence and turned it into an extreme sword. The sword aura went against the heavens and broke through the demonic technique. Sword Crafting Master's body exploded, and sand flew everywhere. The wheelchair moved once more, and blood flowed from Sword Crafting Master's arm. In that battle, Sword Crafting Master's sword was broken, and his body was crippled. Although his cultivation had improved by half a step, his cultivation and combat power were no longer at their peak. Facing Scarlet Drill, who was at the life-knowing stage, he was once again at a disadvantage. Sword Crafting Master didn't want the demonic calamity to descend again, so he gathered his true essence once more. The sword broke through the bloody light and circled the sky. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into one and tore through the sky. Seeing this, Scarlet Drill used the evil energy in the world to block Sword Crafting Master's move. With a loud boom, Black Robe was forced back several steps, and his blood chi churned violently. On the other side, Sword Crafting Master vomited blood once more. His old injuries hadn't healed, and he didn't have much strength left. Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. This old man was indeed extraordinary. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't move, it would be difficult to defeat him. Outside the battle, many people looked anxiously at the battle. They wanted to help, but they couldn't. Please, let Grandpa Sword Crafting Master. A little girl knelt down, crying and begging. After one person knelt down, everyone knelt down and begged the demonic cultivator to spare their sword master. Ling, get up. The people of the sword forging villa do not kneel to anyone. Sword Master Zhu glanced at the little girl in front of the crowd and shouted in a deep voice, "Let's go!" Ning Chen swung his sword and slashed open the sword wall. He walked towards the little girl in front of the crowd step by step. "If you die, I will spare his life." The cold sword tip shone with the light of death in front of the little girl. The black-clothed, black-haired figure did not have any human emotions in his eyes. "All right, you have to keep your word." There was a trace of fear in the little girl's eyes at first, but then she nodded firmly and leaned forward to bump into the sword. Boom! Unknowingly, the dark clouds in the sky covered the moon once again, and the rumbling of thunder resounded through the sky. With a rumble, thunder lit up the night sky. Under the light of the lightning, a soul-stirring scene appeared. The little girl, who was only 7 or 8 years old, gave up her life without hesitation. A sword pierced her body, and blood spurted out like a fountain. The sword pierced through his body, and blood dripped down. Everyone present was shocked. The heavens could not bear it any longer. Heavy rain poured down, blurring everyone's vision. Behind the crowd, a young woman crazily pushed through the crowd and charged forward. However, before she could even get close, she was blown away by a strand of sword intent. Sword Master Zhu, I'll spare your life. Ning Chen silently carried the little girl in the pool of blood, and then his figure flashed as he swiftly left into the distance. 100 miles away, Bai Yunlian's eyes lit up when he saw this. He also turned and left. It seemed that the world was not completely filthy. That little girl was not ordinary. If she didn't die this time, her future would be limitless. In a small, secluded residence in the western part of northern Imperial City, Ning Chen looked at the unconscious little girl on the bed. He flipped his palm, and a drop of bright red blood flew out and slowly entered the little girl's heart. It was a quiet night. Ning Chen quietly stayed by the little girl's side until daybreak. The little girl's injuries gradually stabilized. Only then did he carry her out of the courtyard. Clang. There was a knock on the door. Not long after, the door creaked open. What entered his eyes was still that pair of beautiful eyes. Miss Bai, I have something to do in the next few days. Can you help me take care of her for a while? Ning Chen asked sincerely. Bai Yunlian looked at the little girl in the former's arms and didn't ask any questions. He said indifferently, bring her in. Thank you. Ning Chen thanked him and immediately carried the little girl into the mansion. Bai Yunlian's room was simple and plain. There weren't any extra decorations. It didn't look like a girl's room. Ning Chen wasn't too surprised. Among the people he knew, there weren't many normal people. The little girl was still unconscious on the clean wooden bed. She still looked very pale. Although her injuries had stabilized, she had lost too much blood. She wouldn't wake up for a while. What's her name? Bai Yunlian asked. Ling Er, Ning Chen replied. Yes. Bai Yunlian nodded and said calmly, you can leave. She'll be fine with me. Then I'll leave it to you. Ning Chen glanced at the little girl on the bed with an apologetic expression, sighed in his heart, and then turned around and left. Zhao family, highest pavilion. A secret report was placed on a table in front of everyone, causing the atmosphere to become heavy. Who's going? Asked Zhao Qingyang. This devil's strength is extraordinary. Aside from Yulan, only the second elder is a match for him, said an old man calmly from beneath the seat. It'll be very difficult for me to defeat him by myself, said a middle-aged man at the head of the table. There's no need to force yourself. You just need to bring people to delay him. As soon as you find any traces of him, immediately notify me, said Zhao Qingyang. Grand Elder, you want to personally take action? Asked another Grand Elder. Is there any other way? Asked Zhao Qingyang indifferently. Everyone was silent. Yulan was heavily injured, and the sect master's faction was unable to use their power. Only the Grand Elder would have a chance. Of the Zhao family's 3 heavenly bows, aside from the star mark that had been lost over 10 years ago, the Great Sun Divine Bow had always been controlled by the sect master's faction. As for the Inyue Bow, it was guarded by the highest pavilion. It could be said that the Inyue Bow's existence was the key for the highest pavilion to contend against the sect master's faction. They had to take it back as soon as possible. On a high platform in Heavenly Fate City, the current Heavenly Fate Master was looking at Heavenly Fate. Suddenly, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, dyeing his robes red. The fiendish demons were wreaking havoc in the world. The dynasty was in trouble. Send someone to tell the Zhao family's sect master that the people he's looking for are at Swallow Cloud Mountain. Xuan Tianhe sent out the trace of clarity he had obtained from Heavenly Fate. At the same time, the continuous rain at the lower reaches of Qingxi Lake caused the lake water to overflow. Just as the dam was about to burst, a white Buddhist robe blossomed with a dazzling light that transformed into an invisible barrier that blocked the pouring lake water. The Buddha has appeared. In the villages downstream, the commoners knelt down one by one, looking at the miracle in the distance with excited expressions. In the ancient temple at the foot of the mountain, a third of the Bodhi Pagoda had already been completed. The reappearance of the demon subduing pagoda would sweep away the fiendish demons for the human world. The pagoda's Buddhist nature was complete and Buddhist light shone brightly. The Buddha had used Buddhist blood to make the light on the pagoda even clearer. In the Zhao family's meeting hall, Bai Yi appeared. On the main seat, Zhao Dingkong looked at the young man in front of him. With a wave of his hand, a letter from the Heavenly Fate Pavilion flew into the latter's hands. Swallow Cloud Mountain? Ningchen looked at the location on the letter and frowned. He asked, "When do we leave?" "To prevent any accidents from happening, we'll leave tonight," Zhao Dingkong said seriously. Ningchen nodded and sat down on a chair below. He did not say anything as he waited for the night to arrive. In the Grand Pavilion, a Zhao family disciple walked over and whispered a few words in Zhao Qingyang's ear before respectfully retreating. "That young man surnamed Bai is here," Zhao Qingyang said. "That means Heavenly Fate City has found traces of Zhao Liusu," a grand elder said with a strange expression. "Most likely," Zhao Qingyang nodded. "How fast?" On the main seat, a middle-aged man sighed. Dark clouds covered Swallow Cloud Mountain. Under the pitch-black night sky, silhouettes appeared one after another, silently disappearing into the mountain. An hour later, at the agreed location, those figures once more gathered. They looked at each other and shook their heads. Nothing. Zhao Dingkong's expression was gloomy. How could there be nothing? Heavenly Fate City's divination techniques had never been wrong. Could it be that the news was leaked and those people moved to another location? Ningchen frowned. That shouldn't be the case. "Only a few people know about this, and they're all trustworthy people," replied Zhao Dingkong. "There's one person who's not trustworthy," snorted one of the Zhao family's experts. "Don't spout nonsense. Mr. Bai has been waiting in the meeting hall ever since he received the news. He hasn't left even a step," said Zhao Dingkong. Ningchen didn't care about other people's suspicions. After thinking for a moment, he said, "The next time Heavenly Fate City sends news, there's no need for you to wait for me. Before you leave, just send someone to tell me the location." Zhao Dingkong nodded thoughtfully. "I understand Mr. Bai's meaning. I still have things to do, so I'll be leaving first. See you later." After saying that, Su Yi left, disappearing into the night in an instant. "Sect Master, what did he mean by that?" asked the Zhao family's protector. "He was reminding me that there might be a traitor in the Zhao family," said Zhao Dingkong. Within the Grand Pavilion, a flickering light flickered. A figure stood in a room, calmly waiting for news. Just as the night was about to end, an almost undetectable golden light soared into the sky. The figure in the room instantly vanished. 3,000 miles away, in the wilderness not far from the sword-forging manor, three bows crossed as they fought a devil. Outside the battle, the Grand Pavilion's second Grand Elder, Zhao Feixiao, raised his bow, and a dazzling golden ancient bow appeared. The instant the bow was drawn, thousands of arrows spiraled into the sky. In the next moment, they transformed into a rain of arrows that fell down. With a rumbling sound, the area 3,000 meters around them caved in. A heavenly prison of arrow light appeared, locking down the devil. Within the prison of arrows, the black-robed figure looked at the four people in front of him. A cold light flashed in his eyes. After planning for so long, this moment had finally arrived. Chapter 495. The night was cold and bleak. The arrow prison trapped the demon. The golden brilliance kept circling endlessly, sealing off all paths of retreat. Within the arrow prison, three bows supported the bow technique. Together with the formation, they killed the demon. Outside the battle, Zhao Feixiao was waiting for an opportunity to make a move. The tip of his arrow locked onto the target. Crimson drill moved, bloody light illuminating the world. Its extremely fast figure dodged one arrow after another. Then the sword broke through the air, slashing towards one of them. The instant the sword arrived, the arrow followed. The black-robed figure soared again, dodging the arrow. The three of them worked together, taking turns to attack and defend. Their tacit understanding was flawless. They actually managed to eliminate the threat of the swordsman's extreme speed to the greatest extent. Not bad coordination. "Unfortunately, I'm tired of fighting." The black-robed figure waved his sword, absorbing the evil energy of heaven and earth. Immediately, evil energy gathered in the sword. A monstrous baleful aura surged out. He slashed out, using force to break technique. Outside the battlefield, Zhao Feixiao saw this and bent his ancient bow. Golden light rose, and an arrow met the sword. With a loud bang, sand flew everywhere, covering the eyes for an instant. The black-robed figure disappeared again, and the fallen sword instantly arrived in front of one of them. At the same time, 2 arrows flew over and pierced through the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure was shocked to see that it was only an afterimage. A sword entered the body, and blood splattered. The black-robed figure who had appeared in front of another person at some point in time pierced the latter's chest with a sword. He immediately pulled out his sword and retreated. With the formation broken, danger appeared. Zhao Feixiao's expression became serious. His figure flashed, and he stepped into the formation, wanting to fix the formation's flaw. With one less person holding the formation, how much of a threat do you think this formation still has? The black-robed figure condensed his evil energy again. His feet turned and his sword moved. A sword turned the sky, and bloody sand filled the sky. Zhao Feixiao flipped his palm to block the sword. With a bang, the sand scattered, and the sword intent disappeared. However, the other 2 people in the matrix were not so lucky. The difference in their cultivation and foundation made it difficult for them to block the sword like the former. Amidst the dust, the sword will pass through their bodies. Blood gushed out like rain. With 2 bangs, the 2 figures fell to the ground. Blood dyed the ground, and they never stood up again. The battle situation changed in an instant, shocking everyone. The black-robed man with the ominous sword in his hand was surrounded by a baleful aura. His cultivation was no longer his weakness. Between his moves, killing intent was revealed. Knowing that the first elder would be here soon, Zhao Feixiao did not want to fight head-on. His golden bow was like a crescent moon. Streaks of golden arrow lights sealed off his opponent's path. He focused on defense, trying his best to stall for time. On the other hand, He Yi led the killing with his vicious sword. A bloody brilliance blossomed in the dark night. His afterimages were like illusions. His attacks were exceptionally swift and fierce. Demonic form, blood flame. The phoenix fire turned into bloody flames, and the killing move appeared in the human world. It was a demonic move born from the sword form, and it came from the same source. When the phoenix body used it, it was almost impossible to distinguish the real from the fake. Its might was astonishing. As the killing move approached, Zhao Feixiao condensed his qi and bent his bow to the extreme. 3 golden arrows crisscrossed and shot out, blocking the sword light that was coming at him at an extremely fast speed. A terrifying sound of collision rang out as the arrow and sword light dissipated. However, the ominous sword qi was unstoppable. It entered Zhao Feixiao's body along with the aftershock, bringing out a waterfall of dazzling blood red. Amidst the dust, He Yi's sword did not stop. It quickly passed through the flying sand and arrived in front of the former in an instant. His sword pierced through the former's body, and with a wave of his sword, he flung the person on the sword away. With a bang, the figure crashed into the ground. Dust and sand flew up, dyeing the ground red. The 4 people had been defeated. He Yi walked to the arrow prison and slashed with his sword. The arrow prison shattered, turning into specks of light that dissipated between heaven and earth. At this moment, a white-bearded old man in white clothes rushed over from the distance. His powerful aura was infinitely close to the human sovereign realm. The pressure he gave off was almost on par with the Zhao clan's master. 3 breaths later, the Zhao clan's number 1 Grand Elder, the head of the Grand Pavilion, arrived. "I've been waiting for you, Zhao Qingyang." In the dark night, He Yi stood there quietly, looking at the person in front of him. Zhao Qingyang glanced at the 4 people who had fallen into the dust not far away. His expression sank. Zhao Feixiao's group had actually been defeated so quickly. It was truly beyond his expectations. "What is your goal?" Zhao Qingyang asked in a deep voice. "Your life," He Yi said indifferently. "With just you? Idiot." Zhao Qingyang's eyes turned cold. He clenched his right hand and a black sword appeared. Its cold aura was actually very similar to the Inoue heavenly bow. In the next moment, the sword moved and a cold aura spread out. The ground was instantly covered in frost. The Inoue sword revealed its sharpness for the first time. Heiyi's eyes narrowed. He turned around and dodged the Inoue sword. Then, he turned around and used Scarlet Drill Life. Clang. The two swords clashed and light scattered. Ice crystals condensed on the swords. They were actually trying to forcefully seal the fiendish aura within the Scarlet Drill sword. Seeing this, Heiyi changed the direction of his sword and shook off the two frozen swords. Then he retreated a few meters. His sword was like a willow, quickly restraining the strange power within the Inoue sword. Not bad. Seeing that his opponent had changed his move, Zhao Qingyang shook off the person in front of him and focused. The moonlight on his sword shone brightly and a boundless cold aura spread out. His ultimate move was about to appear. Whirlwind clouds, red sword. When the ultimate move appeared, a red glow appeared under the moonlight. A sword passed through a crack and 100 li was sealed in ice. Heiyi's eyes sank and he no longer hesitated. He clenched his left hand and Yama appeared. Both swords shone with a sharp light and a huge phoenix image appeared behind him. An instant later, Heiyi moved. His left hand used 9 suns burning the 9 provinces while his right hand used sword-style moon splendor. Both moves appeared and intersected. When the two ultimate moves collided, there was a short moment of silence. Then, it was like the sky was collapsing and the earth was collapsing. The ground within 100 li trembled violently and huge cracks appeared, spreading out without end. You are not Scarlet Drill Demon. Or you. Amidst the aftershock, Zhao Qingyang let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. He looked at the black-clothed young man before him with a shocked expression as he spoke in a low voice. The person who will kill you. Ningchen moved again. Yama activated Yellow Springs Road and the 9 suns rotated. An ultimate yang cultivation technique clashed with the ultimate yin sword. The swords clashed and the flowers bloomed and withered in an instant. This was the short life of the ice flower. Yin and yang countered each other and cancelled each other out. The fight between the swords was once again balanced. Sword style, breaking mountains. In close combat, Scarlet Drill Demon used 1,000 caddies. With a loud boom, it broke through the mountains. Zhao Qingyang swung his sword to block. He groaned and retreated a few more steps. The two swords used completely different methods. However, they both had peak attainments in the sword. The Zhao clan's Grand Elder was in danger. You are so capable at such a young age. I can't let you live. Hand over your life. Zhao Qingyang's expression turned grave when he saw his opponent's shocking sword attainments. The Yin Moon sword's cold chi pierced through the sky. Dark clouds stirred in the sky. A trace of moonlight shone through a huge whirlpool and onto the sword. The shocking phenomenon caused the wind and clouds within 100 li to go berserk. Heaven's descent. When the power of laws appeared, Ning Chen's expression turned serious. He took a step forward and leaped into the air. His two swords formed 2 moves. One was Rising Sun, and the other was 9 suns burning the world. The ultimate yang moves turned into a divine sun that could burn the sky and boil the sea, pressing down from the sky. The two extremes clashed. Everything disappeared as far as the eye could see. The ground crumbled inch by inch, sinking several meters. The endless wasteland turned into scorched earth. Heavenly Book. Zhao Qingyang staggered. His eyes were full of shock. A moment later, blood gushed out from his chest. Evil chi entered his body and destroyed his meridians. On the other side, blood flowed down from the black-robed man's arms. After the ultimate move, he was also badly injured. Zhao Qingyang spat out a mouthful of blood. He leaned on the sword in his hand and covered his chest that was bleeding. He was shocked at first, but then he laughed crazily. Kid, have you run out of strength? What a pity. My battle has just begun. Life and death, samsara substitution. In the crazed laughter, a golden talisman on Zhao Qingyang's chest bloomed with dazzling light. The substitution talisman had appeared for the first time. In the blink of an eye, the substitution talisman dissipated. The next moment, the Grand Elder moved. He slapped out and the black-robed man flew out. His blood stained the sand. "You didn't expect this, did you? Man proposes, God disposes. I will take your life." Zhao Qingyang walked forward step by step. He pressed his palm against the Grand Elder's head and was about to end his life. At this moment, a black blade light appeared and blocked the Grand Elder's palm power. Then he carried the seriously injured knowing destiny and left quickly. Tears of the burial of flowers, butterfly in flowers, damn it. Seeing the two people disappear in the dark, Zhao Qingyang looked very gloomy. He did not expect butterfly in flowers to appear at this time. All his efforts were in vain. In a remote house in Beiyu City, a blue light flashed. Hua Zhongye appeared with a severely injured knowing destiny. Without saying a word, she stuffed an elixir into knowing destiny's mouth and then gathered her qi to help him heal. Half an hour later, Ningchen opened his eyes and looked at the angry woman in front of him. He smiled apologetically and said, "Senior sisters, do you want to die for a stupid talisman? If I came a little later, you would be dead." Butterfly in flowers scolded angrily. "I believe you will come in time." Ningchen smiled tiredly and said, Butterfly in flowers was very angry, but she could not bear to blame him anymore. She changed the topic and asked, "How do you get the substitution talisman? Do you understand?" Ningchen nodded and said, "The time is very short. Even if I am prepared, I only have a moment. If I miss it, the substitution technique will be completed and the substitution talisman will disappear." Butterfly in flowers thought for a moment and softly asked, "Do you need me to do it?" "No need. We still need the Zhao family to rescue Liusu. In addition, the strange consciousness in Liusu's fate spirit is definitely related to Zhaotingkong and the Zenith Pavilion. Before we can ensure Liusu's safety, the balance between the two factions can't be broken. Do you know who did it?" Butterfly in Flower's eyes flashed with a strange light. "There's a 30% chance it was Zhaotingkong's act. There's a 60% chance it was the Zenith Pavilion scheme. As for the last 10%, there's the involvement of other factions. But the possibility is very small. Zhao Liusu's constitution was indeed extraordinary, but it was not worth it for a faction to make such a big fuss. As for the secret behind her constitution, there should be no more than 5 people, including him, who knew about it. The matter of the strange consciousness was too secretive. Apart from the person behind it, it was very difficult for other factions to find out. In addition, during the night attack, Zhao Yolan's 2 arrows had appeared to be helping him. But based on the situation when he had fought with her, if Zhao Yulan had used her full strength that day, those 2 half-step exalts would not have been able to escape unscathed. From all the signs, this was just a game between the 2 factions of the Zhao family. As for him, he was nothing more than a chess piece on Zhaotingkong's chessboard. Aristocratic families were deep, but human relationships were cold. Only when all the chess pieces had been placed could one see how cold people were. Chapter 496. Within the Zhao family's Jingyu pavilion, there was an incense burner, 2 cups of tea, and 2 chess pieces. Each move was filled with danger and killing intent. The chess players were as calm as water. The big picture covered the sky, and the chess pieces were merciless. Half an hour later, the final word was uttered, and the dragon was resurrected, turning around in a full circle. "It's been a while since we last met. Sect Master's chess skills have become even purer. I truly admire you." The azure-robed man across from Zhaotingkong put down the chess piece in his hand and smiled. The Zhao family's Jingluan was full of wisdom. Although he was low-key, no one doubted his talent. He was one of the people the Zenith Pavilion feared the most. "After probing, we've confirmed that Liusu's capture was done by the Zenith Pavilion," said Zhaotingkong. "The Zenith Pavilion's ambitions are clear. Unfortunately, Zhao Qingyang was too impatient. Now that his replacement talisman has been destroyed, he's at the end of the road," smiled Zhao Jingluan. "Since you've returned, I'll leave Liusu's matter to you," said Zhaotingkong. "As a father, I couldn't ask for more," said Zhao Jingluan. "Bai Yujing is a pretty good chess piece. She's someone who values relationships. If we use her well, She'll be of great help to us, reminded Zhao Tengkong as he looked at the chess piece on the board. By Yujing? Heh, it seems I'll have to find time to pay a visit to my daughter's savior, smiled Zhao Jingluan as he raised his teacup. Within a small courtyard in Beiyu City, Ning Chen was sitting in front of a table, calmly organizing his thoughts. There were no butterflies in the courtyard. The only thing that remained was a messenger bird chirping on a tree branch. It added a bit of life to the quiet courtyard. Clang. The sound of knocking came from outside the courtyard. Ning Chen came back to his senses and walked over to open the door. In front of him were two figures, one large and one small. What attracted Ning Chen the most was still that pair of star-like eyes. They were so familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen them before. Please come in, said Ning Chen softly. Bai Yunlian held the little girl's hand and walked into the courtyard. Ning Chen closed the courtyard door and walked behind them. The little girl turned her head and smiled. Her face was still a little pale, but it was now flushed red. Her body is fine. I came to return her to you, said Bai Yunlian. Many thanks. Ning Chen raised his head and looked at the woman before him as he spoke with a serious expression. There's no need to thank me. Accompany me to the Golden Buddha Temple and we'll be even, Bai Yunlian said calmly. Gold Buddha Temple? Ning Chen frowned slightly. He had heard of this name before. Recently, the people of the North Imperial City had spread the rumor that Buddha had appeared in the Golden Buddha Temple. Many people who went to pray had come true. He had never believed in the matter of praying to Buddha. If Buddha had a spirit, the human world would not be so miserable. Miss, do you believe in Buddhism? Ning Chen asked. I don't believe you, Bai Yunlian replied. Then why is Miss going to the temple? Ning Chen asked, puzzled. There's an old friend in the temple. Let's go pay him a visit, Bai Yunlian said indifferently. When Ning Chen heard this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He didn't ask any more questions. He took a step forward and squatted down. Looking at the little girl, he said gently, Ling, your big sister Bai and I are going to the Gold Buddha Temple. Are you going to wait at home or come with us? Ling tilted her head and thought for a moment before saying softly, let's go together. Ning Chen nodded and said, it's a long journey. Let me know if you're tired. The little girl replied obediently. Then, two big and one small figure left the small courtyard and walked out of the North Imperial City. Not long after, the little girl was tired and fell asleep in a certain someone's arms. After days of heavy rain, the lake water was close to the bridge. There was no one on the bridge at the time of the flood. The two of them walked across and went into the distance. At the ancient temple at the foot of the mountain, the incense was flourishing. When the two of them walked over, it was already noon. In the temple, people came and went. Bai Yunlian had just stepped into the ancient temple when he frowned. An uncomfortable feeling rose in his heart. What's wrong? Ning Chen asked when he saw the former's strange expression. Nothing. Bai Yunlian suppressed the abnormality in his body and his expression returned to normal. When the two of them entered the temple, Ling was also awakened by the bell in the temple. She rubbed her eyes and slid down from a certain someone's arms in a daze. There's a lot of people. Don't run around. Ning Chen patted the little girl's head and said softly. Ling nodded. She grabbed the former's hand and looked around curiously. After a while, she let go of a certain someone's hand and ran to the Buddha statue. She imitated the adults beside her and began to pray. Ning Chen stood in place and waited quietly. Back then, when he took Mingyu away, she was also the same age. Now that more than 10 years had passed, the little girl who was clamoring to listen to stories should have grown up to be slender and elegant. Time passed so quickly. Unknowingly, Mingyu and Qi had grown up and could take charge of things. In the temple, Bai Yunlian looked around and then walked out of the main hall and towards the back of the temple. In the back of the temple, Bodhi's pagoda was almost half completed. On the pagoda, a golden light was faintly discernible. Bai Yunlian walked over and looked at the Buddha in front of the pagoda. His dreamy eyes flashed with intense killing intent. Bodhi turned around and saw the girl not far away. He frowned. It's her? The silent and oppressive atmosphere was so heavy that it was hard to breathe. Just as the situation was about to go out of control, A white-clothed girl walked over and broke the deadlock. The Jiming Marquis. Bodhi frowned once more. Oh, it seems Grandmaster has already gone to the eastern region. However, I'm now called White Jade Capital. Ningchen smiled. You once saved the world. You shouldn't bring disaster to this world, said Bodhi. No one wants to be enemies with the world. We all have no choice. Of course, if Grandmaster wants to take action, I won't just sit and wait for death. Ningchen glanced at the pagoda and smiled. This pagoda is not bad. Grandmaster spent a lot of effort to build it. I presume you have a great use for it. Demon Sealing Devil. Bodhi didn't hide anything. Then I'll have to trouble you, Grandmaster. However, I've always liked freedom. I might not be willing to be locked up in a pagoda like this, said Ningchen calmly. In 100 years, this pagoda will help cleanse Benefactor's body of killing karma. For Benefactor, there are no disadvantages, said Bodhi. 100 years? Heh, if Grandmaster can tell me how to revive the dead, then let alone 100 years, even if I never leave this pagoda, I'll have no regrets, said Ningchen. The samsara of life and death is irreversible. I'm powerless. Bodhi sighed. Then forgive me for not being able to comply, said Ningchen. Do you know each other? Bai Yunlian softly asked after hearing their conversation. We do, said Ningchen. Do you have enmity? Asked Bai Yunlian. Does Buddha and devil count as enmity? Ningchen's lips curled. What a coincidence. We also have enmity, said Bai Yunlian. Oh, how can there be such a coincidence in this world? Since that's the case, why don't we join hands and destroy his pagoda? Suggested Ningchen. There's no rush. Let's wait until your injuries are healed. I just came today to say hello, said Bai Yunlian calmly. That's reasonable. Using peaceful means before resorting to force is the way of a gentleman. Ningchen nodded in agreement. He pulled the girl toward the front courtyard. Bai Yunlian glanced at the Buddhists in front of the pagoda and also turned to leave. Linga, once your body is better, I'll send you home. On the way back to the city, Ningchen promised. All right. The little girl nodded obediently and replied. Within the city, Ningchen stopped in front of a small courtyard. He frowned slightly as he looked at the girl beside him. He crouched down and warmly said, Go to Big Sister Bai's place first. I'll come pick you up in a bit. Bai Yunlian also sensed the unfamiliar aura in the courtyard. He didn't say anything. He held the girl's hand and walked toward his own residence. Watching the two of them leave, Ningchen opened the door. There was an azure-robed man sitting in front of a stone table. His expression was calm, and his face was somewhat similar to Zhao Liusu's. It wasn't difficult to recognize him. Zhao Jingluan, Liusu's father. The azure-robed man stood up and introduced himself. There's no need to be so courteous. Please sit, said Ningchen with a faint smile. I came this time to thank Mr. Bai for saving my daughter's life, said Zhao Jingluan sincerely. You're too courteous. Liusu and I are friends, so it's only right for me to help. Have you found Liusu's whereabouts? Asked Ningchen calmly. The sect master has already sent people to Tianji City. There should be news soon, said Zhao Jingluan. Ningchen nodded. Thinking for a moment, he warned, there might be spies for those assassins in the Zhao family. Please be careful. Thank you for the reminder. I will pay attention to this matter. It's getting late and I still have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Once there's news from Tianji City, I'll immediately send someone to inform you, said Zhao Jingluan. Take care, said Ningchen calmly. Zhao Jingluan left after him. Ningchen narrowed his eyes. The main character had finally returned. Now it was time to see just what role he would play in this situation. The Zhao family's muddy waters were truly unfathomable. In a certain region of the Central Plains, there was an immortal residence that stood high above the boundless mountains. It didn't appear in the mortal world. The Grand White Manor was a legendary place in the mortal world. Today, the human walker had returned. Ren Jyoga, who had been defeated by a devil, walked up the mountain step by step. His heart was filled with unwillingness and shame. As the only walker of the Grand White Manor, he was supposed to be the protector of the devil and uphold justice. But he had never imagined that he would be defeated by a devil. In front of the immortal residence, Rinjioga knelt down and kowtowed in apology. "Get up." At that instant, a firm voice said calmly from the immortal abode. "Thank you, Manor Lord." Rinjioga got up and said respectfully, "Those who have fallen into the devil's path will give up their emotions and desires. Their combat power will be far greater than ordinary people. 4,000 years ago, a human sovereign unfortunately fell in the Scarlet Devil's calamity. Now that the Devil's calamity has arisen again, it's indeed too difficult to rely on just you. Manor Lord, please advise me." Rinjioga said unwillingly. The homeland of the Western Buddha is a holy land for Buddhist cultivators. Since ancient times, Buddhism and the devil have been antagonistic. Go to Tianfo Mountain. The master of Tianfo Mountain, Guangzun, is an old friend of mine. Take this with you. Guangzun will naturally send people to help when he sees it. As soon as he finished speaking, a golden Buddhist bead slowly flew out of the immortal residence and landed in Rinjioga's hand. "Thank you, Manor Lord." Rinjioga glanced at the Buddhist bead in his hand, then bowed respectfully and left. Chapter 497. In Tianji City, Tianji, who had not rested for more than 10 days and nights, constantly tried to observe the secrets of heaven through the dark clouds. The exhaustion in his eyes had reached its peak. "Master, you can't look anymore, or your lifespan will run out." Below the Tianji stage, a handsome young man had a worried look on his face as he advised him again and again. However, on the stage, Tianji acted as if he did not hear him and continued to use all his strength to stir the clouds and peek into the heavenly Tao that humans could not peek into. Suddenly, Xuan Tianhe spat out blood, staining his purple robe red. The current Tianji, who was constantly overdrawing his lifespan, was at the end of his life. Almost there, almost there. At the last moment, Xuan Tianhe used the last of his strength to push aside the dark clouds and peek into the secrets of the future. The apocalyptic scene of the 9 heavens falling and the sky beyond heaven appeared in front of the prophet's eyes. The scene of experts falling one after another, the black-clothed, black-haired demons standing in the 9 heavens, his killing intent endless, as if he wanted to destroy heaven and earth. "It's him." Before he could take another look, Tianji staggered and fell straight off the Tianji stage. "Master." The young man stepped forward and caught the falling Tianji, his handsome face full of anxiety. Xuan Tianhe weakly said something in the young man's arms, then his vitality quickly dissipated and his hands hung limply by his side. At the same time, in the Xuanji Palace, a jade pendant shattered with a bang. The Xuanji Emperor suddenly got up from the dragon throne, took a step, and instantly disappeared. Boom. The 9 heavens were covered by dark clouds and thunder and lightning, as if lamenting the future of the human world. The void swirled and the emperor appeared. Looking at the old man in the young man's arms, his eyes darkened and his hands cracked. "What did Master say in the end?" The Xuanji Emperor asked in a low voice. "The sky beyond heaven has appeared, the experts have fallen, the demon's body is in the sky, the end of the human world," the young man said in a low voice. Tianji's instructions before he died described the last scene he saw. However, at this moment, no one knew whether what he saw was real or not. "Bury him," the Xuanji Emperor said in a low voice, then his figure flashed and disappeared. 2 days later, the Heaven's Legacy City's instructions were spread to every major sect in the Middle Continent, shocking the world. In the ancient temple at the foot of the mountain, in front of the demon-suppressing pagoda that was gradually being built, the old abbot walked forward and handed over the letter that the Emperor of 4 Stars had sent over. Tianji had informed him that there was a supreme martial artist in the ancient temple when he was still alive. The Emperor of 4 Stars did not disturb him all this time. Today, he sent a letter and for the first time, acknowledged the existence of the Buddha. Supreme Bodhi was silent after reading the contents of the letter. The Emperor of the 4 Stars sect's intention was very clear. He wanted Yi Qingyu to help him slay the demons. However, he had doubts about the instructions given by the Tianji city. He knew very well that there were 2 devils from the eastern region. One of them had completely become a devil, and the other had killed so much that he could fall into the devil's path at any time. However, he still had a trace of hesitation when it came to these two people. It was hard to believe that a powerhouse who had once saved the world would actually become the scourge of the apocalypse. In Bayou City, a chess piece was placed on the chessboard. Dark clouds rolled in the sky, and thunder rumbled continuously. The atmosphere was unusually oppressive. In the small courtyard, Zhao Jingluan sent someone to deliver the news that they were about to set off. Ning Chen looked at the green bird on the tree branch and suppressed the uneasiness in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he did not send the letter to the butterfly in the end. Ling, come here for a moment. Time was of the essence and there was no time to waste. Ning Chen did not hesitate any longer. He called the little girl who was playing by herself and walked out of the courtyard. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Not long after, with a creak, Bai Yunlian walked out and looked at the person in front of him without saying a word. Miss Bai, I'll have to trouble you again. Ning Chen rubbed the little girl's hair and said softly, I have something important to do and need to go out. If I'm not back by dawn tomorrow, please send Linger back to the sword-casting manor. Thank you very much. Is it very dangerous? Bai Yunlian frowned slightly and asked. It should be fine. Maybe I'm just thinking too much, Ning Chen replied with a smile. Be careful. Bai Yunlian took the little girl's hand and hesitated for a moment before saying two words that he had never said before. A look of surprise flashed across Ning Chen's eyes. Then, he nodded with a smile and turned to leave. Outside the northern guard city, one figure after another flew out and headed north. Within the highest pavilion, a Zhao family disciple came to deliver news. Zhao Qingyang's expression changed slightly and he immediately headed north. Grand Elder, where are you going? 200 miles outside the city, two figures walked out and blocked his path. One was azure-robed and the other was blue-robed. Both of their powerful auras were shocking. Zhao Tenkong, Zhao Jingluan. Seeing the two of them, Zhao Qingyang's expression sank. He immediately realized that something was wrong. I originally thought that it would take a few more days to get rid of you. I never thought that a scarlet refining devil would help me so much. Now that your life substitution talisman has been destroyed and Zhao Feixiao is no longer here, your path has come to an end, smiled Zhao Jingluan. So you've long since suspected me, said Zhao Qingyang. You were in too much of a rush and exposed too many openings. However, I still don't understand how you learned about the strange consciousness in Liusu's soul. The sect master and I have never mentioned this matter to anyone, said Zhao Jingluan indifferently. You want to know? Keep dreaming. Zhao Jingluan, even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. Your viciousness surpasses mine by 100 times, 1,000 times. Sect master, if you ask a tiger for its skin, you'll end up burning yourself sooner or later, said Zhao Qingyang. Trying to sow discord is a useless struggle. Since you don't want to speak, then hand over your life. A vast palm condensed. The Zhao family's Jingluan was the first to use his shocking cultivation base. His vigorous true qi soared in the darkness, and he stepped forward and slammed his palm forward. Zhao Qingyang's expression changed slightly. With a wave of his hand, the Yin Moon sword appeared, blocking the incoming palm. The two of them collided, causing the wilderness to explode. Boundless chaotic streams of energy surged. As the two of them retreated, Zhao Tenkong's body moved and he pressed his palm forward. Yin Moon sword art. Zhao Qingyang's feet spun, and his sword moved. A Yin Moon rose behind him. His sword moved the wind and clouds, meeting the incoming palm head-on. With a boom, Zhao Tenkong retreated 3 steps. His eyes were cold, and he once more raised his palm to seize Zhao Qingyang's soul. At the same time, Zhao Jingluan also raised his true qi to support the battle. In this peak battle, one sword shook 2 experts. Zhao Qingyang held the Yin Moon sword in his hand. His sword was swift and fierce, vowing to kill his way out. Sword and palm collided again and again. Blood constantly splattered. How could this trap that had been prepared for so long allow someone to escape? Whirlwind scattering clouds, red sword. 2 experts working together were difficult to block. Zhao Qingyang's sword's Yin Moon sword flourished, and endless cold qi spread. A single slash of his sword sealed everything within 100 miles. Useless move. Zhao Jingluan snorted coldly. His figure flashed, and he suddenly split into two. He dodged the sword and then condensed into one. In the blink of an eye, he arrived behind Zhao Qingyang and slammed out a palm. The restraining move that he had cultivated for many years finally came in handy today. This life-taking palm mercilessly cut off the soul. With a bang, blood splattered everywhere. Zhao Qingyang staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood. His aura rapidly surged. First Elder, don't forget this life's lesson on the road to the Yellow Springs. Don't be a member of the Zhao family in your next life. As he spoke, Zhao Tenkong's body trembled, and his palm struck Zhao Qingyang's chest once more. With a muffled groan, Zhao Qingyang's white figure flew back. Blood flowed from his body, dyeing his white robes red. Having lost his divine talisman, the head of the venerated pavilion was at the end of his road. Zhao Qingyang's sword stabbed into the ground. It was a miserable scene. His white robes were dyed red, and his blood constantly flowed, creating ravines on the ground below him. Zhao Qingyang, who had lost all his vitality and strength, struggled to get up. Suddenly, he did something shocking. Even if I die, I will drag you all to hell with me. With a palm strike on his dantian, his qi si collapsed. Endless true yuan surged out and flowed through his meridians. Zhao Qingyang, who had overdrawn his vitality, raised his sword to the sky. An incomparably dazzling moon slowly rose. Under the moonlight, black ice crystals rapidly condensed, reaching hundreds of miles away. Be careful. Seeing that his opponent was going all out, Zhao Tenkong reminded him. Immediately he raised his true yuan to the limit and gathered the spiritual qi from all directions, condensing his strongest move. In an instant, the sky was filled with thunder. Bolts of lightning descended from the sky, increasing the power of his move. On the other side, Zhao Jingluan's mouth curved into an indescribable arc. He took half a step back without leaving a trace. Raising his true yuan again, he suddenly changed the direction of his palm. An unbelievable palm strike pierced through Zhao Qingyang's heart. At the same time, the Yin Moon sword qi pierced through his throat. Zhao Tenkong turned his head with difficulty and looked at the azure-clothed man behind him. His eyes were filled with disbelief. That was still a sincere smile, warm and gentle. The person he trusted the most in his life seemed so unfamiliar at this moment. Sect Master, First Elder, you've all been of use. With Liu Su's help, the Zhao family will once more reign supreme in my hands and regain its former glory, said Zhao Jingluan. Zhao Tenkong, this is the person you trusted the most? How lamentable. I'll be waiting for you on the road to the Yellow Springs. Zhao Qingyang staggered and crazily laughed. His body slowly collapsed, smashing into the dust. As expected, the person you trust the most is the most untrustworthy. Ha! A sorrowful laugh came from the pain of being betrayed by someone he trusted. In the next moment, golden light blossomed from Zhao Tenkong's mouth. The life substitution talisman had appeared once more. Your life can't be returned. Zhao Jingluan's body flickered, and he arrived in front of Zhao Qingyang. His palm turned into a claw and pierced into Zhao Qingyang's heart. Zhao Qingyang's powerless body smashed into the ground. His final gaze was filled with sorrow and tears. His eyes slowly closed. The lesson of this life had been deeply painful. If there was a next life, would he still want to be a member of the Zhao family? Dark clouds surged, blocking out all light. The battle had ended in a wasteland riddled with holes. The victor proudly stood there, blood constantly dripping from the life substitution talisman in his right hand. The Zhao family's Jingluan was full of wisdom, but he had schemed against everyone. Zhao Jingluan, you deserve to die 10,000 times for your crimes. Just at this moment, an infuriated shout rang out. A black arrow filled with fury shot over. The Yin Moon bow was drawn, and the wind and clouds changed. Zhao Jingluan's expression shook. Vast vital energy converged and blocked the terrifying arrow light descending from the sky. With a loud bang, Qing Yi retreated a few steps. Blood dripped from his right arm, dyeing the ground red. Zhao Yulan the Yin Moon Bao. Hows. When Zhao Jingluan saw the woman in front of him and the heavenly bow that should have been lost, his expression changed again and again. He did not understand what went wrong. Chapter 498. Outside of the Northern Guard city, Yulan had arrived in fury. Her body was filled with killing intent, and the dark moon blossomed with dazzling light. One black arrow after another pierced through the air and arrived directly in front of Zhao Jingluan. Boom! With a loud rumble, Zhao Jingluan retreated a few steps. Then he took a step forward and swiftly shot forward. His palm energy converged into a torrential wave as he struck out with a bang. Zhao Yulan gracefully stepped out of the way, dodging the palm strike. Her heavenly bow's cold qi soared into the sky, piercing through the black clouds. Another black arrow appeared. With a boom, the arrow pierced through the air, cutting through the horizon. Its destructive power caused heaven and earth to tremble. A peak battle between two geniuses. Arrows and palms pierced through the 9 heavens, shocking the world. An hour before the battle began, a black-robed figure appeared in the Zhao family's Dark Moon Pagoda. He instantly arrived in front of the heavily injured Zhao Yulan. Zhao Yulan was just about to resist when a sword was pointed at her throat. She didn't dare to move. If you don't want to die, then don't resist. Phoenix flames surged into her body, burning away the remnants of her fiendish aura. A vast amount of phoenix origin energy flowed into her body, temporarily suppressing her injuries. Dark Moon Bao, I'll return it to you. The black-robed figure waved his hand, and an object wrapped in black cloth flew out and landed in her hand. Zhao Yulan opened the black cloth, revealing the Dark Moon Bao that had been stolen from her a few days ago. Its familiar aura was bone-chilling. Why? Asked Zhao Yulan. If I were you, I wouldn't ask why. I've already returned the Dark Moon Bao to you. Zhao Qingyang is currently on his way to the Red Maple Forest. Whether or not you can save his life will depend on your own good fortune. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-robed figure moved his feet and instantly disappeared. Grand Elder. Zhao Yulan's expression changed. Her figure flickered as she left the Zhao family and headed north. Up in the sky, a furious and irrepressible arrow pierced through the heavens. Wherever it passed, a terrifying hole was ripped open in the air. A sinister black qi wildly whistled through the air. The arrow was too fast to dodge. Zhao Jingluan waved his hand, gathering the energy of heaven and earth. A furious torrent of energy slammed into the black arrow. When he saw blood, he retreated several steps. In the aftermath of the shockwave, his green robe disappeared. He stepped through the air and instantly arrived in front of Yulan in the void. He sent out a palm strike and raging waves attacked the sky. Zhao Yulan gathered her energy and sent out a palm strike. Blood spurted out and Yulan was sent flying. The blood did not stop flowing. Yin drew her bow and 3 arrows shot out, chasing after the stars and moon. Heaven and earth are one game, and the falling stars are the chess pieces. Zhao Jingluan waved his hand and pointed at the stars. The world turned into a chessboard, and the stars turned into chess pieces that fell into the overall situation of the world. In the pinnacle of the match, the child of the stars met the dark moon arrow head-on. 3 arrows filled the sky, and the stars shattered. With a huge explosion, the world tilted and blood splashed. Zhao Jingluan retreated several more steps. His fury reached the tip of his brow as he condensed the power of wind and clouds in his hands. His shocking cultivation instantly erupted. The chaotic aura formed a huge whirlpool around Zhao Jingluan. Zhao Jingluan displayed his shocking martial arts foundation for the first time. His aura that was close to that of a human sovereign soared into the sky and shook the world. 7 stars fall to earth, annihilation of the universe. This was a shocking move. 7 enormous stars appeared in the sky above Zhao Jingluan. They condensed into a myriad of things that seemed illusory yet real. Zhao Yulan's slender hand drew across the bowstring of the dark moon arrow. Blood flowed out and dyed the heavenly bow red. A terrifying aura quickly awakened. Boundless blood light enveloped Yulan's body. In the next moment, a blood-colored arrow appeared. It absorbed the cold energy of the world and transformed into an arrow that pierced through the sky. The arrow that appeared in the sky had a bright red moon on it. It was as if the moon had descended from the heavens, causing the world to tremble. Within the whirlpool of wind and clouds, the two extremes collided. The bright moon lost its color, and a brilliant light spread out endlessly, destroying everything in its path. Everything collapsed and sand surged like a wave. Zhao Jingluan was sent flying several meters away by the shockwaves. Blood dripped from the corner of her mouth. She had been seriously injured. On the other side, a beautiful figure was dyed red as she was sent flying. Blood sprinkled across the sky. The Zhao family's Yulan, who had yet to recover from her injuries, was once again injured. New injuries and old injuries erupted at the same time. She staggered as blood splashed across the sand. To be able to injure me like this, Zhao Yulan, I commend you. However, I will be taking your life. As he spoke, Zhao Jingluan's palm energy once more arrived. A life-taking palm strike flashed past. Let's enter seamless together. Zhao Yulan didn't even try to dodge. Instead, she stepped on the bowstring, her body turning into an arrow. In an instant, her orchid blossomed, and a sky full of purple crystals quietly floated down. That year, the Grand Elder had found the pride of the Zhao family, Empty Valley Yulan, in front of the highest pavilion. Yuan, are you willing to enter the highest pavilion? I'm not willing. Yulan refused. I know you've always thought that I opposed the sect master because I was eyeing the position of sect master. But do you know what Zhao Tenkong and Zhao Jingluan did? They forcefully implanted the soul energy of several of the Zhao family's ancestors into Zhao Liusu's soul. That is a taboo. Even a vicious tiger will not devour its cubs. The Zhao family will sooner or later be consigned to eternal damnation in their hands. Come to the highest pavilion. Only by working together can we stop these two devils, advised Zhao Qingyang. Yulan's expression sank. How do I know you're not just making up excuses for your ambitions? You can use your own eyes to see for yourself. You should know that Zhao Liusu's physique can only be considered not bad. However, a few days ago, I accidentally discovered that her physique is gradually approaching perfection, without any flaws. In this world, there is no heavenly treasure that can change a person to such a degree. The only exception is a human sovereign, continued Zhao Qingyang. So you're saying that Zhao Liusu is already a human sovereign? Asked Yulan. It's not complete. Right now, it's just her cultivation realm, but her physical body hasn't reached the required level. However, one day, once the strange consciousness within her three souls completely awakens, her physique will reach perfection. At that time, Zhao Liusu will truly become a human sovereign who only has strength, but has completely lost her sense of self, said Zhao Qingyang gravely. How do you know? Asked Yulan. Before I became the Grand Elder of the Grand Pavilion and before Zhao Tenkong became the sect master, I accidentally entered the Zhao family's ancestral shrine. From the 4 stone tablets below the altar, I saw this forbidden technique. At that time, I only felt that it was too shocking and difficult to realize, so I didn't take it to heart. It was only when I discovered Zhao Liusu's abnormality that I thought of this matter again, explained Zhao Qingyang. Don't let me find out that you're lying to me. Otherwise, I'll make you pay an unbearable price. Yulan snorted and turned to leave. From that day onwards, the Zhao family's Yulan had entered the Grand Pavilion, and for the next 10 years, she had used her own eyes to observe the Zhao family's bottomless depths, to see the truth that was difficult to see. 10 years later, when the truth was placed in front of her, the Zhao family's Yulan's fury soared into the sky. The Yin moon gathered the 9 heavens Yin Qi, and her body transformed into an arrow. The moment the Yulan flower bloomed, the arrow shot out, causing the world to dim. At the same time, her palm energy also arrived. The moment the arrow and palm collided, the ground within dozens of miles caved in. Even Beiyou City, which was 300 miles away, could clearly feel the tremors. The commoners were terrified. A waterfall of blood sprayed into the sky. On the collapsed ground, 2 figures vomited blood and retreated a dozen steps at the same time. The Zhao family's Yulan was half kneeling on the ground, her body covered in blood. Blood continuously dripped from her body, dyeing her purple dress red. The yulon flower that had bloomed in the cold wind had completely bloomed. It was so beautiful that it was dazzling. For the sake of protecting the Zhao family, she had endured patiently. No matter what the outside world said, no matter what the Zhao family said, she still followed her own method to protect the family that she had sacrificed her entire life for. The Grand Elder's scheme, Zhao Dingkong's and Zhao Jingluan's ambitions, none of it was seen by others. However, Zhao Yulan, who had been calmly watching from the side, had silently seen it all. Perhaps in this world, the Zhao family's Yulan was the one who saw it the clearest. Rip. Under the rumbling of the night sky, the sound of clothes tearing apart was ear-piercing. Amidst the raging sandstorm, a waterfall of blood sprayed out from Zhao Jingluan's chest. The final arrow had pierced through his heart, forcibly destroying his martial bones. Blood continued to pour out of Zhao Jingluan's mouth. His expression was sinister as he looked at the woman in front of him. Zhao Yulan, you've made me have a whole new level of respect for you. However, in the end, you still won't be able to kill me. As he spoke, golden light flickered. The substitution talisman appeared in the world. Its brilliant brilliance illuminated the world, as well as the sinful night. Substitution samsara. The sinner was about to take a step back from the brink of death. However, at this moment, a white robe flashed through the night. In an instant, a cold sword pierced through the sky. The golden light that filled the sky instantly turned sluggish. Zhao Jingluan, you won't be able to return to the heavens. The phoenix opened its mouth and swallowed the substitution talisman, completely severing the connection between the two. Then it disappeared into the body of a life-knowing cultivator. It's you. The familiar face in front of him now had a completely different coldness. Zhao Jingluan's sinister face flashed with shock. He had never imagined that in the end, this would be the place where his mistake had occurred. Ning Chen glanced at the man whose martial bones had been destroyed and whose heart had been heavily injured. He didn't finish off the final blow. Instead, he turned and walked toward Zhao Yulan. No matter what, this man was still Liu Su's father. Even if he deserved to die, he didn't deserve to die by Ning Chen's hand. So, this was all part of your plan. Seeing the crimson drill sword in Ning Chen's hand, Zhao Yulan instantly understood everything. She smiled miserably and coughed up another mouthful of blood. How many people could I have schemed against? Said Ning Chen calmly. He stepped forward, turned over his hand, and slowly sent qi into the woman's body. It's useless. Zhao Yulan pushed Ning Chen's hand away, her expression exhausted. Perhaps he was right. If it weren't for the greed of the human heart, then this entire situation would have been completely meaningless. No matter what, she had to thank him for personally wiping away the filth of the Zhao clan. Father, uncle sect leader. Just as the dust was about to settle, a group of figures appeared off in the distance. Their leader was an old man. Zhao Liusu saw the unbelievable scene in front of her, and her mind trembled. Ning Chen turned his head, and his expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to step forward, an indescribably terrifying pressure suddenly pressed down on him. It was as if the 9 heavens were falling down. It was so heavy that everyone's expression changed. However, in the void above, Zhao Liusu, who had lost control of her mind, tears quietly slid down her cheeks. In the next moment, a mournful cry resounded for hundreds of miles. The wind and clouds in the 9 heavens changed. Her black hair danced wildly in the sky, and a terrifying pressure descended, destroying the world. All of you deserve to die. She lost control of her mind, and the seal merged. In the air, the mortal sovereign opened her eyes, and a terrifying killing intent surged out. Chapter 499. The Supreme Being of the Mortal Realm had awakened. Dark clouds rolled and lightning flashed continuously, illuminating the faces of everyone present. Her hair wildly danced in the wind, and her aura was so terrifying that it made people's hearts tremble. It far surpassed esteemed Qingbai's. The heavens descended, and lightning fell one after another. Heaven and earth grieved. Boom! A 3-meter thick bolt of lightning fell from the sky. The heavenly Daos had sensed it, and it sent down world-cleansing heavenly lightning, wanting to destroy this man-made forbidden existence. The blazing white lightning was exceptionally dazzling, and it contained a destructive force. Under the lightning, the woman remained as unmoving as a mountain. She raised a slender hand to block the world-cleansing heavenly lightning. The forbidden existence was difficult to remove. Thunderclouds once more roiled, and thousands of bolts of lightning fell at the same time. Scram! The woman's bloodshot eyes looked up at the sky. Her words were like a law, and the lightning instantly froze. The black clouds in the sky scattered, and the lightning collapsed. The extremely powerful human supreme beings, even the heavens couldn't stop them, their cries trembling. Run! Seeing that a chosen had appeared, the situation was irreversible. Zhao Yulan endured her heavy injuries and shouted. Ning Chen recovered his wits and brought the heavily injured Yulan away. I already said that all of you will die. The woman took a step forward, and space twisted beneath her feet. In an instant, she appeared in front of the two of them. Her palm pressed down and space collapsed. An extremely terrifying existence was difficult to contend against. The Yama King reappeared in Ning Chen's left hand. His two swords condensed into a pair of yang moves. Divine suns appeared in the human world to block the chosen's palm. Zhao Yulan also condensed her remaining true yuan. Yin Moon Bao was drawn, and moonlight shone brightly. The sun and moon moved side by side, condensing into a move that could kill gods and slay Buddhas. Together, they resisted the forbidden existence. The chosen's palm fell, and the sun and moon instantly collapsed. The two of them were sent flying, their blood filling the sky. The Central Plains and the Eastern region's two peak heavenly geniuses were unable to block a single attack. What a terrifying existence. 9 suns, space severing. Seeing that Yulan was already heavily injured, Ning Chen endured his injuries and used his heavenly book's move. 9 suns revolved, cutting through the void. However, just as the combined technique was about to arrive, the woman raised her hand, and the void twisted, instantly using the parallel engulfing flow technique. In the next moment, the mortal sovereign's palms struck out again. The terrifying might was as if the 9 heavens were pouring down. It was abnormally terrifying. Ning Chen took a step forward, and the King of Hell condensed his phoenix essence again. The murderous aura of the crimson drill sword swept out violently, and the power of the 2 swords blocked the heavenly fall. With a loud bang, blood splashed into the sand. Ning Chen was sent flying backwards. Behind him, Yulan was also sent flying hundreds of feet away, stumbling and vomiting blood. Go! Ning Chen leaped into the air and borrowed the momentum to retreat again. He took Yulan with him and quickly left. Hurry up and leave. If you take me with you, no one will be able to leave. I'm already without a doctor. Leaving or not, there's no difference. Even as she spoke, Zhao Yulan flipped her palm and knocked him out of the battle. Then, she took advantage of the momentum to send him out of the battle. After finishing her last task, Yulan turned around and activated Yin and Yang to their limits. Amidst the bloody mist that surged into the heavens, the heavenly bow reflected the moon. A scarlet arrow radiance slowly condensed, condensing the moonlight's Yin energy and rising endlessly. Looking back on her life's perseverance, the Zhao family's Yulan no longer had any regrets. Her final arrow had surpassed her own limits and rapidly climbed, reaching the supreme realm of perfection. Tell me your name. Within the bloody mist, the orchid bloomed, and a clear voice rang out. Ning Chen. Outside the battle, Ning Chen couldn't help but turn his head and transmit his voice. So it's you. I'll remember it. Goodbye, Grand Xia Jiming Marquis. After the arrow shot out, the orchid quietly withered after blooming to the extreme. In the horizon, a blood-red brilliance cut through the void and arrived in front of the mortal sovereign. The mortal sovereign raised her hand to block the arrow. The endless sharpness of the arrow rapidly revolved, breaking through the mortal sovereign's true essence and entering her body. A drop of blood dripped from the corner of the woman's mouth onto the ground. This was the first time she had seen blood since the battle began. On the ground, the gradually withered orchid had already reached the end of its life. A pair of beautiful eyes tiredly looked into the distance. This life had been worth it. Bring her back to the Een Soul prison. Everyone else continue chasing, said the woman coldly. Yes. Outside the battle, the Zhao family's experts suppressed their shock and respectfully accepted the order. Under the night sky, streak after streak of light flashed past, chasing in the southwest direction at high speed. Within a secluded residence in the northern imperial city, Bai Yunlian stood quietly. Looking at the eastern sky, she couldn't help but frown. He still hadn't returned. Had something really happened? After waiting for a quarter of an hour, the sky was already bright. The person who should have returned still hadn't returned. Bai Yunlian didn't wait any longer and walked into her room. He still hadn't returned. According to her promise, it was time for her to send Een back. Half a day later, in the sword-forging villa, the space rippled, and a beautiful figure in a blue and white dress walked out. She no longer concealed her aura, and a powerful pressure descended from the sky, causing everyone in the villa to feel their chests tighten. Human sovereign. Within a study filled with ancient texts, the sword-forging head was startled. He quickly turned his wheelchair and rushed out. Inside the villa, everyone was on guard. In front of them, an exceptionally beautiful woman stood quietly. Beside her, a cute little girl stood there, causing everyone who saw them to be shocked. A beautiful woman excitedly ran forward and hugged the little girl tightly, crying bitterly. Tears streamed down Een-Er's face as she began to sob. In the end, she was just a 7-year-old girl. After experiencing such a life and death situation, how could she remain calm? Many thanks for saving Een-Er, said the sword-forging head. I didn't save her. You don't need to thank me. Furthermore, Een-Er's foundation has already been cleansed by her phoenix blood. She has already paid back that sword attack. After saying that, Bai Yunlian turned and left, disappearing in an instant. The sword-forging head was startled. He looked at the little girl in the woman's embrace. At this moment, his expression was extremely complicated. In just one day, the Central Plains had undergone a huge change. The Zhao family once more reigned supreme. A terrifying sovereign who stood at the apex of the human world had appeared, sweeping away all resistance and forcefully unifying the Zhao family's power. Another day later, the Zhao family's devil-slaying order was issued. No one dared to go against it. Practically all the large sects had sent out Xiantian experts to discuss the matter of slaying the devils. What was different was that the sword-forging manor, which had always been active in slaying the devils, chose to remain silent this time. They didn't respond at all. However, even so, the trend of slaying the devils was irreversible. Within Heavenly Fate City, Tianjizi's disciples worked together to use divination arts to lock onto the traces of the devils. They used secret arts to spread to the various sects, assisting them in slaying the devils. In the boundless wilderness, the red clothes were stained with blood. The swords opened up a path for the devils. Waves after waves of pursuers seemed to always know where they were and couldn't avoid them. Even if they changed their appearances, it was useless. Forced to a dead end, they couldn't take it anymore. In the hands of the knowing destiny state, the king of hell opened up a path to the underworld. In half a day, they had killed all the pursuers of the 3,000 large sections. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. The extremely angry sects finally exploded with their strongest anger. They worked together to send out thousands of Xiantian experts. 9 half-supremacies walked out together to slay the devils. Under the setting sun, the wilderness was dyed red. No one knew how many people's blood had stained Qi Lian's sword. The monstrous killing intent soared into the sky. It could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. The knowing destiny state was already injured. After being besieged repeatedly, his body was exhausted day by day. The blue bird asked for his whereabouts. The anxious butterfly kept asking for his whereabouts. However, no one responded. Among all the sects in the world, only the Academy didn't receive guidance from the Tianji city. This was an order from the human supremacy of the Zhao family. The Tianji city didn't dare to disobey. Under the cold moon, the knowing destiny state, who had broken through many pursuers, closed his eyes and sat on a dead tree. He listened to the blue bird's voice on his shoulder. He didn't answer from beginning to end. As long as she was safe, it was enough. Aren't you going to run anymore? The void stirred. One figure after another appeared. The four half-supremacies chased after him again. Behind them, Sciention experts, Fifth Tribulation experts, and 3 disasters experts came. Their soldiers surged like waves in the sky. Endless auras joined together and gathered the power of the world. They didn't give the devils any chance to escape. On the dead tree, the knowing destiny state, who had temporarily adjusted his breath and suppressed his injuries, stood up. He looked at the allied forces of the various sects calmly. His black hair had been stained with frost. The terrifying killing intent surged. With the blood under the sword, it could no longer be suppressed. The Taoist body had lived for 100 years, while the devil body had lived for 1,000 years. As the killing continued, the powerful devil showed signs of suppressing the phoenix body again. The road of Avicii was long. Once one stepped on it, it would be difficult to turn back. In the Zhao family's Yin Soul prison. In the prison, a sad and beautiful figure was tied to the wall. Yulan, who was at the end of her life, couldn't resist the erosion of the cold air in the Yin Soul prison for days. She finally reached the end of her life. Cough, cough. In the silent prison, coughs sounded one after another. Drops of blood flowed from the corner of Yolan's mouth and fell on the ground that had been dyed brown by blood. Her once beautiful eyes gradually lost their former brilliance. However, there was a trace of calmness in them that hadn't been there before. At this moment, the door of the prison opened. A girl in purple walked in. Her face was familiar, but it was completely cold. Yulan raised her head and looked at the girl in front of her. She smiled tiredly and said weakly, "Liusu, are you here to send me off?" "I'm here to see how miserable your end will be," the girl said coldly. "Is it important?" Yulan coughed out another mouthful of blood. Drops of blood fell on the ground in front of her. "It's important. Also, there's no need to rush on the road to the Yellow Springs. That man should be accompanying you soon," said Zhao Liusu coldly. "Liusu, you can't kill him." The time limit was up. Yolan's consciousness was in a daze. She weakly replied, then coughed again. Outside the Yin Soul prison, the sun gradually rose. The first rays of the morning sun shone through the cracks in the prison's window. At this moment, it was unexpectedly warm. "It's daybreak." Yulan raised her head and smiled tiredly. After waiting for so long, it had finally come. "I hope you will be safe and happy from now on." Yulan looked at the girl in front of her for the last time. There was no hatred or resentment in her eyes. She had just opened her heavenly eye to observe the world of mortals. Chapter 500. In the wilderness of the buried gods, another killing scene unfolded. The black and white hair fluttered in the wind as Qi Lian and Yama's twin swords opened the path to hell. The allied forces of various sects surrounded them heavily, sealing off all escape routes. 2 half-venerables were in charge of the formation, while the other 2 half-venerables stepped forward, holding their weapons and preparing for battle. Kill. With a single command, the saber and halberd beheaded the demons. The sharp killing light chased after their souls and took their lives. With a loud clang, the 4 weapons collided with each other. The aftermath of the collision shook the earth. The knowing destiny dual swords fought against the 2 venerables. The heavenly son of swordsmanship had once again reached his peak. Taking a step, turning his body, swinging his sword, simple yet flawless sword moves were like flowing clouds. Sword after sword, he blocked the 2 venerables' fierce attacks. Rip! The sound of clothes tearing could be heard. A half-venerable's arm turned red for the first time. He took half a step back and his face darkened. In the battle, Hong Yi's expression was ice-cold. Her entire body was filled with demonic killing intent. Every move she made was the result of everything she had learned in her life. More than 10 years ago, he learned the way of the sword from the sword consecrated. After that, he carried the sword for the legend of the Grand Xia dynasty and saw the sword on the sword. After that, in Desolation City, Mu Bai taught him the way of the sword. Sword style, sky severing. The Yama king swung his sword, slicing through the air. 100-meter-long gust of wind tore through the void, and even the path to the yellow springs. Fresh blood spurted out, and severed limbs fell everywhere. The Grim Reaper took his life, and the sword opened the yellow springs. Seeing that the situation was unfavorable for them, a half-venerable who was in charge of the formation waved his hand and held his spear. A whirlwind broke through the air and entered the battle once again. With a loud bang, the sword and spear collided. Cold light scattered in all directions. Hong Yi's sword power rotated. One sword retracted, and the other advanced. In a flash, the attack and defense had been switched. The King of Hell had seized his life. Clang! The blade flashed and blocked the sword. Then the halberd came from behind Hong Yi. They attacked in unison and did not give him any chance to breathe. Sword style, remnant red. Danger struck. In knowing destiny's hand, the King of Hell's blade turned in an instant. Holding the sword with a backhand grip, he took a step forward and his shadow scattered. In an instant, the sword flashed and the red sword fell. The sword and halberd clashed. Immediately after, a muffled groan sounded. One sword attacked, the other defended. Qi Lian's god-shaking halberd pierced through the chest of Yama. The sword pierced an inch into his body, and the halberd in the demigod's hand released a surge of true yuan. The demigod was pushed back, and he took 2 steps back. Then he operated his martial arts to suppress the injury on his chest. Behind him, the saber light and spear shadows arrived again in the blink of an eye. They were swift and fierce and did not stop for even a moment. Zhi Ming turned sideways and swung his sword to ward off the spear shadow. Then, the tip of his sword collided with the saber radiance. The aftershock of the saber and the sword rolled up thousands of sand waves. There were layers upon layers of murderous traps, and there was no way to survive. The sword in the trap was handsome and proud. Knowing destiny had walked out of corpses and bones. Even in the divine tribulation, it had never retreated half a step. Tens of thousands of miles away, in Tianji City, human supremes appeared one after another. They stood at the top of the sky and looked towards the southwest of the central region. Their eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. To have such attainments in the sword at such a young age was truly shocking. The great Xia Jiming Marquis lived up to his name. Unfortunately, his foundation was too far from what the legends said. Otherwise, even if the 9 half-venerables came together, they would not be able to defeat him. The eastern region's Jiming Marquis has come to the central region. We didn't even know about it. Sorry for not going out to meet you, said a Supremes with a half-smile. It's not too late to welcome him now. All the sects under the heavens have moved because of him. This kind of extravagance is enough. While speaking, a purple-clothed young lady walked over. Even though she looked young, her terrifying aura actually faintly suppressed every single supreme being present. It was truly shocking. As the saying goes, nothing is more poisonous than a woman's heart. It's true. Zhao Liusu, I heard that the Jiming Marquis saved your life. To repay him like this is really impressive, said the Supremes who spoke first. Tu Li Zun, if you think you've lived too long, I don't mind sending you on your way, said the girl coldly. Tu Li Zun smiled faintly and did not say anything else. Although this person's attainments in the sword are terrifying, his foundation is too far from what the legends say. It's hard to reverse the situation, said another Supremes. It's hard to send a deity off. If he doesn't pay a price, how can he succeed? If his foundation was still there, we would be the ones to act now, said the fourth Supremes. A hero at the end of his road. What a pity. The first Supremes sighed softly. Tianji City's prophecies have never been wrong. This person's killing intent is already irreversible. Instead of watching him completely enter the demonic path and wreak havoc in the world, it's better to send him on his way before that day comes, said the fourth Supremes calmly. Tens of thousands of miles away, the sound of swords clashing became more and more ear-piercing. The battle had reached its climax. Knowing destiny fought against 3 venerables with 2 swords. Above the 9 heavens, endless sounds of chains were heard. The pinnacle ultimate martial art resonated with the heavenly law. Drops of sweat hadn't even dripped down when they were evaporated by phoenix flames. The 9 suns on the sword spun into the sky and forced back 100 people who were surrounding it. Sword force, heavenly fall. The 9 suns turned into a sword. The sword form and the heavenly book combined together fell from the sky. The sword's sun descended and 1,000 feet of land suddenly collapsed. Amidst the miserable cries, the bodies of hundreds of cultivators from various sects exploded. Blood and bones scattered all over the sky, dyeing the wilderness red. The 3 venerables blocked the sword and retreated several steps. Their blood did not stop flowing. They took a step back and the halberd descended once again. Knowing destiny brandished his sword to shake off the 2 weapons. Borrowing the force, he turned around and blocked the saber again. At the same time, in the ancient temple at the foot of the mountain, in front of the demon-subduing pagoda, Supreme Bodhi, who had never left the ancient temple, was quietly watching the battle in the distance. His usually calm eyes had become abnormally complicated at this moment. It was difficult to understand the Buddha's heart. Should the sinner who had no choice but to become a devil in order to save the world be punished? In the Heaven's Fate City, 7 white-clothed youths were studying the Heaven's Fate together. Suddenly, their expressions froze. One of them immediately said, "A sovereign is heading towards the god-burial wilderness. His goal is unknown. Another paragon has left, and he's also heading towards the wilderness of gods," said the second youth. "Humph, do you think it's that easy to interfere?" The purple-clothed girl took a step forward and disappeared instantly. "This sovereign also wants to join in the fun." Li revealed a playful expression. His figure flashed as he followed after her. In the god-burial wilderness, who knew how many tens of thousands of li away, the paragons started fighting. For the sake of the battle in the god-burial wilderness, the Xiantian full-circle sovereigns who had always avoided fighting also started the most intense battle. Pieces of the void collapsed, and thousands of li of land collapsed. The terrifying heavens might frightened even gods and ghosts. Under the momentum of the world devil-slaying war, even the paragons were powerless. They were blocked by other paragons and couldn't advance. Today, no one can save him. The Zhao clan's paragon turned his hand into clouds and opened the sky. He blocked the path of the paragons. Every move caused the world to tremble. In the god-burial wilderness, the battle became more and more intense. 1,000 li away, the remaining 5 paragons and a portion of the sect's forces were rushing towards the god-burial wilderness. With the help of the Heaven's Fate City, the traces of the devil body were like candlelight in the dark night, difficult to hide. The killing array was heavy, and countless souls had died under the sword. In the killing array, the black hair and white frost that moved along with the sword increased. The sword opened the gate of life, and the sword killed the souls. In the center of the killing array, the 3 paragons unleashed their full strength. Their auras soared, and their divine weapons were used to slay the devil body. After a long battle, the 2 swords suppressed the 3 paragons. The shocking sword techniques made the battle of the devil-slaying war even more difficult. Morning sun shines in the east. The king of hell shines in the sun, and the heavenly book's technique appeared again. Seeing this, the 3 paragons gathered their energy and blocked the shocking technique. With a shocking explosion, the world shook. When the 3 paragons retreated, the leader of the 4 paragons, who hadn't moved until now, finally moved. A strange snake-shaped sword swept past, breaking through the sky. When the sword met the sword, it shook violently. Ningchen didn't have time to react, and the corner of his mouth was dyed red. Broken Mountain. One sword retreated, and the other sword advanced. Scarlet Lotus condensed its fiendish energy, and with one sword, it slashed down. Scarlet Lotus Demon, I commend you for being able to endure until now. Unfortunately, your path has come to an end. The leader of the 4 paragons gathered his energy and blocked Scarlet Lotus Demon's attack. In the midst of the chaotic sandstorm, several sword marks appeared on his clothes. Knowing destiny didn't say anything, and with a pair of cold eyes, he slashed down one sword after another. He didn't give up for even a moment. Before saving the ghost girl, no one could take his life. He had to live on, and he had to live on at all costs. 9 suns, burial of life. At this moment, A terrifying fiendish energy soared into the sky. The two swords met, and the 9 suns gathered the evil energy of the world, turning into 9 black suns, and loudly fell down. It was a scene of doomsday, and the world within 100 miles was being destroyed. Sand was flying everywhere, and the earth was moving up and down like a tsunami. Countless experts couldn't withstand this terrifying evil energy, and with a bang, their bodies exploded. The 4 paragons blocked the attack, but all of them vomited blood. The evil energy entered their bodies, and their true essence became chaotic. When an opportunity appeared, knowing Destiny's 2 swords moved again, and with one sword slashing through the sky, his body turned into a phoenix image and quickly flew away. Do you think you can escape? At this moment, the other 5 paragons finally arrived. The leader condensed his energy into his palm, and with a bang, he slapped at the phoenix image. Suddenly, a green arrow pierced through the sky and blocked the paragon's attack. In that short moment, the phoenix spread its wings and disappeared into the distance. The Zhao family's people? The 9 paragons were furious. How could the Zhao family's people interfere at such a crucial moment? Traitor, it's you again. Tens of thousands of miles away, the purple-clothed girl flipped her palm to block the paragon's attack. Then she looked toward the southwest, and anger flashed through her eyes. Seeing the phoenix image leave, the paragons fighting Zhao Liusu also quickly retreated. 700 miles away from the God-burial wilderness, the phoenix image appeared, and as soon as it landed, it staggered and vomited a mouthful of blood. "Many thanks," said Ningchen tiredly as he glanced at the man behind him. "It's been a long time since we last met, but your ability to cause trouble still hasn't decreased." Luo Xingchen looked at the youth in front of him and sighed. "It's just that I can't help it," Ningchen replied, and then reminded him, "You should quickly leave. My tracks have already been locked down, and it'll be difficult for me to escape in a short period of time. If a paragons personally attack us, none of us will be able to leave." "I understand. I'll go hide in the Western Buddha's homeland for a while. You should also think of a way to leave the Central Plains as soon as possible," Luo Xingchen helplessly said. He had originally come back to cause trouble for the Zhao family, but now that he had helped knowing Destiny's arrow, he had no choice but to run. "Yes, we'll meet again someday," said Ningchen. "We'll meet again someday?" Luo Xingchen sighed softly. Without further delay, his figure flashed, and he headed west. Old friends had met again in less than a quarter of an hour, and now they had to part again. The experts who had risked their lives for the human world in the past actually had such a difficult road ahead. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.